quorum consisting of 50 members. So with that determination, I will announce that the 2014 annual town meeting for the town of Longmeadow is now in session. To start things out, ladies and gentlemen, we have Reverend Marisa Brown Ludwig, Associate Pastor of First Church of Christ of Longmeadow. She will deliver the invocation, and at this time I will recognize Reverend Brown Ludwig.
Greetings to everyone. I greet you on behalf of First Church of Christ, UCC in Longmeadow. I am Marisa Brown Ludwig, a relatively new minister in this town, and I know that there are so many of you I have not yet met. I am very honored to greet you here at the Longmeadow Annual Town Meeting. I just want to note that in light of last week's Supreme Court ruling on prayer in local government meetings, that what I do here tonight by offering this invocation, though a long tradition, is something that stirs up many feelings for many people, and I just want to name that tonight. There is much talk about it, and even among your own clergy here in Longmeadow. And so tonight I want to recognize that this is a town now of diverse members, and so when I am here tonight, I am sharing this podium with all of my interfaith clergy members who are not actually standing here with me tonight. I do this intentionally to urge us all, religious and non-religious, to engage the beauty and the strength of our differences, to forward the noble work to be done tonight, and to do it with mutual respect, with deep listening, and compassion for all voices, especially the powerless. So hear now these words written by an anonymous Jew, Christian, and Muslim. O Holy One, you who are the source of all life, bless us who gather here tonight. Save us from weak resignation to violence. Teach us that restraint is the highest form of power, that thoughtfulness and tenderness are marks of the strong. Help us to love those who oppose us, not by countenancing their sins, but by remembering our own. And may we never forget for a moment that they are fed by the same food, hurt by the same weapons, and have children for whom they have the same high hopes as we do. Grant us the ability to find joy and strength not only in the strident arguments of dominance, but rather in doing the work of justice that will make this town a place for which and in which we all can flourish together in peace. And I ask this prayer in the name of the holy, however we each may understand it, and for myself, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Brown Ludwig, for that invocation. And now, ladies and gentlemen, would you please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the Star-Spangled Banner. The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic that stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have the Star-Spangled Banner being sung by E. Cantori. As you all know, E. Cantori has graciously, over the years, been singing the Star-Spangled Banner under the direction of David Fonts, and our members of E. Cantori tonight are Mano Blackman, Justin Feldman, Matthew Garrity, James Heemskirt, Shubham Kanaki, Rahini Loki, Olivia Panetti, Nick Patel, Carly Santiago, and Tempe Schrenker. E. Cantori, please. Thank you so much, E. Cantori. David, thank you so much. And in line with the Pledge of Allegiance, our Star-Spangled Banner, we have upcoming a Memorial Day. Memorial Day, a time to remember our veterans. We could not fail, I don't think, to stop here before we begin tonight's business to remember our veterans of all wars, the men and women who continue to serve our country now, and I would ask that we grant them, our veterans and our active service members, a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's go over some of the, inside the last page of your warrant, there are housekeeping rules, which you all should take a look at in how town meeting is run, at least the way that the moderator has handled the town meetings. Get up. If you wish to speak, you need to address one of these microphones. You need to address your name and where you live. And we have a green card tonight. So only members on the floor of town meeting may have, only those with green cards may remain on the floor of town meeting. Anyone else, ladies and gentlemen, must sit in the designated area over here for visitors. So if there's any member who doesn't have a green card, they belong over here in the visitors section. The exits, ladies and gentlemen, I'm told by our fire department that all of these exits are work. So in the event of a fire alarm, you can go out any of these exits on here, on my left and on my right. There's exit signs in the middle. There's exit signs in the rear. So all of those exits are open. You'll be directed when and where to go if that should happen. There's also a town meeting generates a lot of paper, ladies and gentlemen. So there should be some receptacles to dispose of all your refuse and paper. And I would urge the town meeting, any unused or any paper they want to use, throw away. There's recycling containers scattered throughout town meeting. Place them there. Another thing, ladies and gentlemen, We have in this town a very valuable committee, and that is our Finance Committee. Our Finance Committee is an advisory body to the town meeting. It is a very, and has historically been a very valuable committee to this town. It was the old Appropriations Committee, now it's the Finance Committee. Finance Committee is a fiscal watchdog for our town, and the Finance Committee over the years has served Longmeadow very, very well. I'm informed by the chairman of our Finance Committee that there are vacancies available to the Finance Committee. I would urge any member of this town, if they're interested in serving on this valuable committee, to either contact me. There will be notices posted in the Longmeadow Reminder, but certainly if you're ever interested in serving your town, no more valuable committee to this town meeting than our Finance Committee in terms of the fiscal advice that it's given this town over the years. And with that, we'll proceed directly to consideration of the motion under Article 1. Excuse me, Ms. Angelides.
The Select Board and School Committee recognize the commitment and dedication of the following individuals who retired or left town service during the past year. We thank them for their efforts on behalf of the town.
For the school department, Marilee Tromke, math teacher at Williams, 35 years. Marianne Martin, principal secretary at Center School, 28 years. Larry Birdie, principal of Longmeadow High School, 27 years. Lorna Healy, Latin teacher at the high school, 25 years. Catherine McKenna, elementary teacher, Wolf Swamp School, 19 years. Ann Burt, principal secretary at Blueberry Hill School, 18 years. Pamela Trank, secretary and reading assistant, 16 years. Lizzie Januska, pupil services receptionist, 15 years. Cynthia O'Malley, paraprofessional, Longmeadow High School, 14 years. William Lyon, English teacher, Longmeadow High School, 10 years. And former members of the school committee, Jennifer Jester, 3 years. Jim DeRozier, 2 years and 3 months. And Gerard Kiernan, 1 year.
The Assessors Department, Carolyn Reed, 5 years, 11 months. Sherilyn Palm from the Collectors Department, 2 years, 8 months. Christopher Davis, firefighter, 1 year. Michael Mayhew, firefighter, 22 years. Library, Diane Boucher, 14 years. Elise Laurel, 12 years. Evelyn Sals, 18 years. Rebecca Vitkosas, 1 year. Barbara Wozek, 25 years. Parks and Rec, Mary Hope Bolek, 5 years, 7 months. Sandy Bolek, 3 years, 7 months. Livia Benusa, 7 years, 9 months. Emily Brody, 6 months. Seneca Farden, 7 years, 10 months. Gail Fountain, 12 years, 7 months. Patricia Flynn, 7 years, 7 months. Stephen Hall, 5 months. Lee Lloyd, 2 years, 2 months. Kyle McCoy, 1 year. Aaron Ryder, 8 years, 7 months. Catherine Souza, 1 year, 7 months. Audit Committee, we'd like to thank Christopher Booton for his service for 3 years. Cable Advisory Committee, William Monks, 18 years. Community Preservation Committee, Michael Shea, 2 years. Council on Aging, Margaret Jenkins, 6 years. Patricia Camerata, 11 years. Cultural Council, Pat Hogan Welsh, 7 years. Finance Committee, Daniel Healy, 3 years. Peter Landon, 3 years. Historical Commission, Richard Theriault, 1.5 years. Planning Board, Roy Johansson, 10 years. On Town Manager Select Board, Mark Borowski, 1 year. Kim Herring, 6 months. And Town Clerk, Election Worker, Margaret Jenkins, 45 years. I am also honored to announce the Citizen of the Year Award to a special member of our community that we lost this year. She was a tireless worker for the town, her church, St. Mary's, and her community. She volunteered as an election worker, a worker at town meeting for the planning board, the maternal club, and the Council of Aging. She welcomed us on election day and town meetings with a warm smile. She was a friend to all. As her friends wrote in her nomination letter, she spent her life being there for other people. She was always available if you needed an errand done or a ride for an appointment. It is better to give than to receive. That's how she lived her life. We can all learn a lesson from Margaret. The Select Board honors Margaret Brady Jenkins as Citizen of the Year. We welcome her daughter, Kathleen Rosado, to accept the award. And now David Horowitz, the Vice Chair of Parks and Rec, will come up to give the Cliff Zundell Volunteer of the Year Award. Thank you.
Good evening. Each year, the Park and Recreation Department awards the Cliff Zundell Award by recognizing an individual that has given selflessly of their time and talents to benefit the youth of this town in the name of past Park Board member and selectman Cliff Zundell. Mr. Zundell was an example of an individual who contributed greatly to the youth of Longmeadow by sharing his vision of citizenship, sportsmanship, and always seeing the big picture. This year's recipient is part of the fabric of Longmeadow baseball, first becoming active in Longmeadow Little League over 25 years ago, and more recently acting as president of Longmeadow Little League. As many of you know, Little League here in town serves children ages 4 to 12 and teaches not only the game of baseball, but lessons in sportsmanship and teamwork. The Little League pledge reads, and I quote, "I trust in God, I love my country, and will respect its laws. I will play fair and strive to win, but win or lose, I will always do my best." This year's award winner has demonstrated tireless leadership while maintaining the high standards of Little League. The program would not be as successful in accomplishing its mission if not for the effort of this year's award winner. When submissions for the award were being accepted, the Park and Recreation Department noted that for the first time ever, children submitted letters of support. Players wrote such things as, and I quote, "Coach is great because he's all about baseball and takes time to make us better players." It is my honor to present the 2014 Cliff Zundell Award to my friend, Steve Schiffman. Steve, the young people of the town who have benefited in expanding their athletic opportunities in Little League are a testament to your unselfish efforts in initiating and sustaining the growth of this sport. Thus, it is with appreciation that the Board of Park Commissioners presents this award at the annual town meeting on this 13th day of May in the year 2014. Congratulations.
All right, we'll now move to consideration of the motion under Article 1. Ms. Angelides.
I move that the town vote to choose 3 trustees to administer the William Goldthwait bequest and the Meredith Wheaton John Kerry, and Don Barkman be chosen as those trustees.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion under Article 1? Ms. Angelides.
The Goldwath bequest is an endowment fund left to the town of Longmeadow for assistance to the worthy poor of Longmeadow. The Board of Trustees administers this fund and makes expenditures from accruing the interest and for applicants experiencing financial hardship. The trustees are chosen annually by town meeting.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 1? Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? Unanimous affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 2, Ms. Angelides.
I move that the town vote to transfer from available funds in the Treasury the sum of $14,735.88 for the purposes of paying bills of the prior year.
Do I hear a second? Second. Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 2, Ms. Angelides.
Costs associated with the removal and disposal of solid waste and recyclables exceeded the FY13 budget and are currently being withheld from payment until a proper authorization for such costs is made. This appropriation will allow for payments of those prior year's bills. These bills are in addition to those appropriated in the fall of 2013.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 2. Mr. Land.
Recommended by the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Landon. Further discussion on the motion under Article 2? Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a 4/5 vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, would you signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? The motion passes, unanimous affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 3. Ms. Angelides.
I move that the town vote to transfer from available funds in the Treasury the sum of $200,000 for the purposes of funding the FY 2014 snow and ice removal deficit.
Second.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 3. Ms.
The
Angelides.
The FY 2014 snow and ice removal costs exceeded the $100,000 originally appropriated. This transfer would fully fund the cost for the fiscal year.
This article is recommended by the Finance Committee.
All right. Further discussion on the motion under Article 3. Seeing none? Yes? Excuse me.
Beatrice Fabian, 45 Fleetwood Drive. When you read the article, you read 200,000. In my book, it says 25,000. So I think that it was either incorrectly printed or you read it incorrectly, but it's $25,000 difference.
When the warrant was prepared for publication, we put down an amount that we believe to be the correct amount. But since then time, we've corrected the number. The number in the motion is what we're asking for, which is $200,000. I just comment that throughout the evening, you may see that happen again. So the numbers that we read are the motions.
Yes, it's the motion that is on the floor that is the motion. The warrant, the article, the information printed in the warrant is to inform the town meeting. All right. Any further discussion on the motion under Article 3? Seeing none, ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the article as read, would you please, under Article 3, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? Unanimous affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 4. Ms. Angelides.
I move that the town vote to accept the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 8G, which authorizes the town to enter into agreements with another city or town in the Commonwealth, as well as contiguous cities and towns in Connecticut, to provide mutual aid programs for the police department in the town.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 4, Ms. Angelides.
This would enable our police department to enter into mutual aid agreements with surrounding police departments, including Enfield, Connecticut. This will ensure that we will receive immediate assistance from their officers, and we can render immediate assistance to them during emergency, example, severe storm, shooting, or request for a canine search dog.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 4. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 4 as read, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? The motion passes majority affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 5. Ms. Angelides.
I move that the town vote to transfer from the water retained earnings account $180,000 to cover higher costs higher than originally budgeted for charges on our water supply purchased from the city of Springfield.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 5. Ms. Angelides.
Unit price cost for our water purchase from the City of Springfield Water and Sewer Commission came in the summer of 2013 and were much higher than budgeted for in our FY 2014 budget, completed in the spring of 2013. This appropriation will allow for prompt payment of our purchased water, and the amount read is different from what you do have in your pack. It's $180,000.
Thank you, Ms. Angelides. Further discussion on the motion under Article 5.
Recommended by the Finance Committee.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 5. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. This requires a majority vote, ladies and gentlemen. All those in favor of the motion under Article 5 as read, signify so by raising your green cards. All those opposed? Motion passes, unanimous affirmative vote. Ms. Angelides, motion under Article 6.
I move that the town vote to transfer from available funds in the Treasury the sum of $20,000 to supplement the FY 2014 unemployment budget.
Second.
Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 6. Ms. Angelides.
The FY 2014 unemployment budget was originally $100,000. Through the end of February, the town has incurred unemployment expenditures totaling just over $95,000. This leaves a balance of just under $5,000. The additional $20,000 is the estimated amount to carry the town through the end of the fiscal year. Again, this is a different amount than you're reading in your book.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 6.
The Finance Committee recommends Article 6.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 6. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a, excuse me,
No,
Ms. Stoller?
no.
Oh,
When you finish with 6, I will finish with
all right. All those in favor of the motion as read under Article 6, would you signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? The motion passes, unanimous affirmative vote.
Mr. Moderator, may I at this time...
Ms. Stoller.
Eleanor Stoller, Meadow Road. At this time, Mr. Moderator, I would like to advance Article 30 at the conclusion of Article 7.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is a motion to take an article out of order. You'll see that, and I know that there's a second yet, but I wanted to explain the motion. A motion to advance an article requires, is it a main motion? So Ms. Stoller has approached the microphone between Article 6 and Article 7. She's been recognized. The motion to advance Article 30 to the conclusion of Article 7, if passed, would require us to consider Article 30 at the conclusion of the budget. Now, By bylaw, it requires a 2/3 vote. It's fully debatable. It is amendable. And it requires a second. So that is the main motion before this body as to, would you bring that, I need that motion in writing. Ms. Stoller, if you'll bring that motion forward. Do you have the motion?
Yes, I do.
Would you bring it forward?
Don't have my glasses. Okay.
No,
Just-
no, you've already read it. I need to have the written motion.
Oh, I have that.
Mark, would you get the motion from her? Because it moves kind of slow. All right. Well, the motion, the main motion before us, move to advance Article 30 to the conclusion of Article 7. Do I have a second? Okay, the motion is moved, the main motion is moved and seconded. Now we will have discussion on the main motion. Do you want to speak on the motion, Ms. Stoller?
Rose Moraes, Longfellow Drive.
Okay.
Article 30, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available...
No.
What would you like?
All right, hold it just, right now, we're discussing whether to advance the article. That's
I
the main
make a
motion that's
motion.
before, that's already on the floor.
Okay.
It's already on the floor. Now the town meeting has to vote on the motion to advance the article. All right? So is there any discussion? Does anybody want to be
Mr.
heard?
Feinstein will take over. Thank you.
Okay.
Saul Feinstone, 471 Frank Smith Road. The motion is to really make it possible for some of us who are here who will not be able to wait till the 30 motion comes to the floor. And we would appreciate your support because there are many elderly in here. This motion has to do with something that benefits the senior center and all the seniors in town. But of course, it will benefit all of you as well. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Fee, so do we understand where we are? We're voting on the main motion to advance Article 30 to the conclusion of Article 7. Okay? That's what we're voting on. It requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any further discussion on the main motion to advance this article? Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. All those in favor of the motion to advance Article 30 to the conclusion of Article 7, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? By declaration, I declare that the 2/3 vote has been achieved. So the motion passes.
Oh, yeah.
Of 2/3. Now we will consider the motion on Article 6,
No, we did 6.
correct?
We did 6.
Article 7, excuse me. Article 7, Mr. Gold.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to fix the fiscal year 2015 salary and compensation of the moderator at $100 and the select persons at $2,000 each, to provide for a reserve fund, and to approve the fiscal year 2015 operating budget totaling $59,254,130, itemized as follows. General government, $1,477,849. Public safety, $4,702,162. Planning and community development, $186,585. Schools, $31,522,119. Department of Public Works General Fund, $3,528,825. Community and Cultural Services, $1,574,514. Debt service and town schools employee retiree benefits, $11,060,624 for a subtotal general fund of $54,052,678. In addition, solid waste recycling budget, $1,041,279. Water budget, $2,341,249. Sewer, $1,818,924 for a total of $59,254,130. And to fund the general fund, $54,052,678 to be raised and appropriated as follows: $53,487,968 from general taxation, $555,000 from ambulance receipts, $9,710 to be transferred from fund balance reserve for future years' debt service. In that to fund the solid waste recycling enterprise fund, $1,041,279 be raised and appropriated as follows: $270,000 from solid waste recycling receipts and $771,279 from general taxation. And to fund the water enterprise fund, $2,341,249 to be raised and appropriated as follows: $2,341,249 from water receipts, and to fund the sewer enterprise fund, $1,818,924 to be raised and appropriated as follows: $1,818,924 from sewer receipts.
Do I hear a second? The motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 7. Ms.
I move to
Ms.
amend.
Right.
I move
Ms.
to.
Angelides.
Thank you. I move to amend Article 7 by revising the appropriation to the school department budget to $31,367,616. This is the amount written in the warrant. This is a reduction of $154,503 from the amount stated in the motion just read. This will result in an overall town operating budget of $59,999,627.
All right. There's an amendment on the floor, ladies and gentlemen. Do I hear a second?
Second.
The amendment is moved and seconded. So now we will have discussion on the amendment. Mr. Clark?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The school committee supports the school budget that was approved, including this amendment. The town manager has assured the school committee that the funds needed for these utilities, should they be needed, will be made available at fall town meeting.
Further discussion on the amendment. Ms. Angelides?
The difference between the school budget in the oral motion and the school budget printed in the warrant and approved by the Finance Committee is $154,503. This amount is an agreed upon amount by the school committee and the select board to balance the budget. It addresses currently unknown one-time utility costs. An appropriation of free cash will be used to fund the one-time utility costs if necessary.
Further discussion on the amendment. Mr. Landon?
Finance Committee recommends the amended amount.
Further discussion on the amendment. Yes, ma'am.
Stephanie Jasmine, 123 Englewood Road. Could I get clarification as to what the amendment is for and what the changed total budget amount would be if the amendment passes?
Okay. Mr. Gold, please.
The amendment as proposed is a reduction of approximately $154,503 from the original budget as submitted by the school committee. State law requires that the original budget as proposed by the school committee be presented to town meeting, and then allows for the amendment, for the budget to be amended based upon the recommendations of the town manager, select board, and finance committee. That is what we did. The $154,503 that was recommended as a reduction by the town manager consists of two items. One is utilities for Long Meadow High School. The current utilities for Long Meadow High School have been unknown. They were running it early in the year at the time the original budget was prepared by the school committee at a much higher rate than they are now. Rather than appropriate funds that would increase the expenditure for electricity for this high school by $134,000, it was recommended by the town manager and is supported, as you heard, by the school committee, that we would level fund the electrical and utility bill for the high school from one year to the next, and should the electricity in the first full year of operation of the school actually prove to be different, we can then adjust it later. There's an additional reduction in the school department submitted budget of $20,000 related to energy costs at Williams Middle School. As you'll see later on, there's a capital projects item for replacing the boiler at Williams Middle School with a high-efficiency boiler. And the assumption is that that high-efficiency boiler will also yield energy savings there. So the two reasons for the reduction that you heard between what was what was originally submitted by the school department and what was printed in the budget and what our amendment is, are those two numbers, a total of $154,503.
Further discussion on the amendment? Mr. Crane.
I'm going to do the whole presentation. Because if it doesn't pass, the whole presentation won't work. Yeah, no, Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, everyone.
We're still discussing? Okay. He's going to do
As soon as Richard gets out of the way, I'll be happy to present the fiscal year 2015 town budget as a part of the discussion on the amendment. If you don't mind, I'm going to step out here a little bit so you can look back at the slides. I'm going to be a while if you want. If you want to sit.
Quick question, if it's...
Oh, okay, go ahead. It's quick.
Hi, my name's David Munrick from 85 Greenacre. Just was wondering,
Well, just wait a minute.
Oh, sorry.
Please direct all the questions to the moderator, please.
My apologies.
Yes, sir.
Oh, David Munrick, 85 Greenacre. Just a quick question. I heard about the proposed change out of that high-efficiency boiler at the middle school. Just was wondering if a payback was calculated for that. I know with energy projects, usually you calculate how long it would take to get your money back based on the cost of putting in a new one versus the cost of sticking with the old one. Just was wondering if calculations had been done for the payback on putting in that high-efficiency boiler, and about how long we could look at getting a payback on that one for.
Mr. Crane.
As we'll see later in the capital plan, the actual item, when we get to that part of the warrant, it's due to some confusion on our end. It is not replacing it with a high-efficiency boiler. It is replacing certain sections. In our analysis of the project after it went to the warrant, it was determined that a high-efficiency boiler wouldn't actually give you that much of a payback because of the age of the building. So we do have the project does include new controls, and so we're going to wait and see what the savings are. We did an initial calculation, but it's a different project now.
Do I?
So I mean, it's not a high-efficiency boiler that we're proposing here.
Okay, you said you did some modifications to the controls. I guess that might allow for some additional setbacks, unoccupied times at night where you could...
Not like that. The burner controls, sorry. The burner controls, the thing on the outside of the burner that fires up.
Well, thank you very much, sir.
Okay, no problem.
Now, we're going to let Mr. Crane do his presentation, and then we'll take questions from the floor. Mr. Crane, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So before I get into the details of the budget, the one thing I'd like to highlight is that this is the first year of what we call the GFOA Budget Best Practices format. GFOA is the Government Finance Officers Association of America, and they have some best practice guidelines that they like municipalities to use to improve the accessibility of the information in the town budget to people who may not be all that proficient in municipal finance, which is kind of confusing anyway. This is our official town budget. As you can see, the warrant you may have in your hand is a much thinner document than this one. This is the first year we've done this. If I gave you the town budget from last year, it would be essentially what you have today in the warrant. This is available online. We have it in all the restaurants in town, so if you go, you can ask for a copy to look at. I do want to. This is something that the Finance Committee had requested the Select Board to do, and I'm glad they did. It was a good exercise for us. This is really version 1.0 of this. We had to generate a tremendous amount of new content from the departments to fill up this document, which includes goals, accomplishments, organizational charts, pictures. It really, you can actually read it cover to cover and really get a story behind the numbers for town operations. So I really encourage everybody to go to the library, go to one of the local restaurants, or go online, and this really tells the full story of the municipal budget. And I do want to commend the departments for putting just an exceptional amount of work forward this year. And next year's version 2.0 will be even better. I had the slide up here a moment ago. It does summarize the amendment. I don't need to go over this information again. So at the start of the process, to create the town manager's recommended budget, we issue a budget directive, and I believe it is in the warrant as well, but it was to basically, to departments to create a base level service budget, taking into consideration all current levels of full-time equivalent employees, and the cost to have them under collective bargaining agreements, and to maintain the current level of services. Any additional supplemental items would need to be submitted in a separate request. So the result of this process, I'm pleased to report, is a budget recommendation to town meeting that is balanced without using free cash, that expands a few key service areas, and uses excess levy capacity to invest in our community. Sorry. So I want to basically describe how we got there. We started off, like we do every year, with a set of budget assumptions back in the fall when we begin the process. And we projected revenues based on the forecasting at the time, and we also projected expenditures based on the forecasting at the time. And we presented those projections at a joint meeting with the school committee and the select board to use it as a guideline as both entities created their budgets. And it really was a crucial step in the process to get everybody on the same page and come to the realization that it does not, in fact, grow on trees. So to give you a sense of our limitations, this is our Proposition 2.5 levy cap, and I won't go into this in great detail other than to show that our original assumption for Prop 2.5 was about $46,288,000, and the revised amount that factors into the budget you have with you is only slightly above that. So our maximum allowable levy really did not increase very much during this process. So I want to go through the general fund revenue assumptions and how they have evolved since we started this process back in October. I can see a little better over here, sorry. So you can see in fiscal year 14, approved budget, total general funds was $55,420,000. We started off with our revenue assumptions back in October of $55,672,000. And as the budget process evolved and more information became known about our property tax levy, which I just described, did not move very much, but also improvement in collections of local receipts, as well as information about state aid, we were able to revise the budget assumptions here in the Select Board approved budget to $56,020,000, and that was a movement on revenues of about $347,400. And that was very important because, as you can see on the expenditure side of the equation, fiscal year 14 started off with $55,420,000, which matches the expenditure, the revenues. We were projecting, based on certain conservative budgeting assumptions that we use as we start off in the process, overall expenditures in the $56,355,000 range. The budget that you have before you has $55,843,000, and that was a reduction in projected expenditures of $511,000. So when you look at how we got from essentially a projected budget deficit in October in the amount of $682,000 to the budget that we have for consideration tonight with the proposed amendment that's on the floor right now, available levy capacity for infrastructure investment of $176,000. It was a very positive step that we were able to achieve that, and I want to address one issue that's been raised, and that is how much money a certain department starts off with based on budget projections. In the case of, for example, the school department, there was a projection of what their budget was going to be that was $190,000 higher than what is in the actual budget. But that $190,000 was a part of a $682,000 budget deficit. So I want to clarify that when we did our budget projections back in October, the projected budgeted amounts were based on assumptions, and we obviously couldn't have a balanced budget with that. So, like I said, through working with the school committee, through the good work of the select board and department heads to try and really hold the reins on expenditures, we were able to, again, bring a balanced budget without the use of free cash to town meeting. I'm going to go through a series of pie charts, and I'll try and be quick about it, that shows what the funds are, where they get spent by category in the budget. I do want to say that the image of the pie is important, though, because as we just described, we have a limit on our ability to generate revenue. And so the size of the pie is fixed, and that's essentially a $56 million pie if you go back to our last slide on revenues. And I just want to bear that in mind, that when you make a change to an expenditure item in the budget, we don't have the ability to expand the size of the pie. You're simply slicing it a different way, taking it from one slice and moving it to another. So on this first slide, this is the select board's recommended budget, general fund operating budget, and you can see, I don't know if I apologize, it's probably hard to read in the back. Some of this information is in the warrant booklet, but this is school department, about 58%, public safety at 9%, planning and community development, it's 0%, but we do give them something. General government, 3%, employee benefits, 13%, debt service is 7%, community services is 3%, and then public works is 7%. So we also have additional funds, enterprise funds, school special revenue, things like that. So the overall global town budget is actually $62 million. And so this is the use in all funds and how they get used. The gray here is salaries, which is about 56% of our budget. Employee benefits and liability insurance is 12%. Debt service is 8%. And then expenses, utilities, vehicle maintenance, things like that. That is in that 24%. And what this pie chart illustrates really is things like salaries and benefits and liability insurance and debt service. Those are fixed costs, either fixed through a contract or an employment agreement, or a contract we have with our health insurance carrier, or debt service is obviously money we owe to a lender. And so when you look at this budget, 75% of the municipal budget is essentially fixed. So you have to conceive of how much money is available each year to work with. It's not the full amount, it's a much smaller percentage. So the general government side is recommended at about $1.5 million. That's an increase of $91,000 over the previous year. One of the big drivers is there are two more elections this year. The clerk's budget is funded out of this part of the budget. There are built-in step increases in COLAs for our town employees, and we do want to replenish the reserve fund that the Finance Committee has granted transfers from throughout the fiscal year. Public safety, the police department has a $2.6 million budget. It's about a $46,000 increase. Again, there are built-in step increases, meaning if an employee has been here a certain number of years, they get a step adjustment in their salary, as well as cost of living. And then we do have built in an increase for our crossing guard program. We have very dedicated people who do that very important job, but they are not paid very well, and as a result, we've had a hard time attracting and retaining quality crossing guards that we entrust our children with. And this additional funding for the crossing guard program will help sustain that and reward the people that have been hanging in there with us and keep the program sustainable for the future by attracting quality people. The fire department, similar sized increase, $47,000. Again, steps and COLAs. We are increasing the vehicle maintenance program. That's really a reflection of our fleet of apparatus is aging and therefore requires more frequent maintenance. Planning and community development is a pretty small part of our budget, $186,000. Small increase. We have our building inspector's office has essentially two people, and it's our building commissioner and an administrative person. And when there's an absence due to vacation or illness, we often have to bring in part-time help to make sure that permits can still get processed and issued and the paperwork of the department continues. So the increase there is largely due to being able to provide the temporary help. School department budget, I don't have much information on this, and Superintendent Doyle is unable to be here because of a health issue that came up suddenly, and we wish her a speedy recovery, but she had a lot more details on the school budget, I assure you, and we regret that she won't be here to present it. But the one thing I want to highlight for the schools is that their general fund budget represented a 2.2% increase over the fiscal year 2014 budget, which was well within the spirit of the budget directive. So Department of Public Works, they are, under the recommended budget, going to get a 5.5% increase up to $3.5 million. One of the drivers of the increase in general fund expenditures is a reallocation of time for work done related to our water and sewer utility infrastructure. When, not to get too complicated, but if they work on a water main or a sewer main, some of the time gets charged to the water or sewer utility, some of the time gets charged to the general fund, depending on what they're doing. And we're revising how that information is formulated and collected, so the allocations are reflective of the work that actually gets done. That means that even though the project cost may be the same, the portion paid out of the general fund is a little higher or lower depending on the allocation. We also are expanding the DPW workforce by one long-term seasonal, and that is to make sure that our parks really are well-maintained and that the fields, especially the athletic fields, get the attention they deserve, so our sports teams can enjoy high-quality playing conditions. And I would also add that obviously the new high school is increased maintenance cost. So community services, it's about $1.5 million budget, a $30,000 increase. A lot of that is tied to the work that our veteran service agent, Anthony Lawrence, who has recently left us to go work for the Springfield Fire Department, has done expanding the caseload and getting veterans in touch with the benefits that they've earned through their service. Employee benefits and liability, property insurance. The good news here was we had a 0% increase in our health insurance premiums, which is really great for this year. We did have a higher than expected increase in our Hampden County Retirement Board assessment, but overall, 4% for health insurance and retirement is pretty good for a given year. And then debt service, our overall debt service budget is going down by $165,000. That's $222,000 in override debt or debt subject to exclusion is going down $226,000, and then there's a $61,000 increase in debt service that's within the levy limit. So I briefly want to go through capital projects here. A lot of these are in your warrant, so I won't spend a lot of time. There was also some boards out in the lobby that shows some of these projects, and if you hadn't get a chance to see them, I hope you will on the way out. So just to define what's capital. It's an item with a 10-year life or more that costs more than $10,000. Water, sewer, water and sewer mains, certain vehicle purchases, building maintenance, buildings, things like that. They are primarily funded through general funds, bonding, enterprise funds, water and sewer, Community Preservation Act, Chapter 90, which is the state money for roads and bridges, and project-specific grants we get from either the state or the federal government. So we have an annually renewing 5-year capital improvement plan. I know this was something that we talked about last spring, but it has been in effect for many years, and we annually update it. And I just wanted to highlight here that these are the anticipated amounts that we would like to spend every year on capital. And if you can't see them, it's $8 million we would have planned to spend this year, and it's in that range every single year. So the capital planning process, town manager presents a recommended capital plan to the capital planning committee, and if necessary, the Community Preservation Act. The recommendations of both committees are sent to the select board for review and approval and inclusion on the town meeting warrant that you have. Town meeting ultimately has the final say on what projects get approved. This year, 46 requests worth $8.6 million were submitted to the town manager. And then overall, through the process, the select board is recommending 34 projects with a total cost of $4.1 million to town meeting. I know this is very hard to read, but this information is in the warrant. It's a summary of the capital projects. And this is the Community Preservation Act projects that are Article 17 through 27. Some of the highlights are the Blinn tennis courts and track resurfacing here at the high school. Just wanted to highlight this. This is our debt service schedule. I think one of the questions that we get is, should we bond more money? Are we bonding too much money? Some municipalities have gotten themselves in trouble by getting in over the head on debt. At current conditions, our debt service schedule is obviously will be decreasing, which means that in these areas here, as the debt service goes down, we can do additional infrastructure or capital work and maintain our debt service payments on a relatively level plane. And then, how much can we borrow? And I just have this, and again, this is hard to read, but the blue area is the area that we have obligated to debt under the limits imposed by Mass General Law. The red area is the remainder of our debt capacity, so we're well under our ability to borrow. And I'll just go through these quick. One of the things I also heard over the year that I've been here is that we approve the projects at town meeting and then don't get to see what happens. And I just wanted to highlight some of the ones that were approved last year. This was Meriwether, Woodside, Williams, improved drainage, really improved the lives of the people, especially on Woodside Drive. And the common theme in all of these is that when you improve the infrastructure and the physical environment in our town, you improve property values because the road or the guardrail or the sidewalk in front of the home that gets done looks better, and that improves value. So I mentioned road paving. We spent about $1 million on it in fiscal year 2014. Some of the projects got done last fall. Our fiscal year and the construction season don't line up, so the projects you see now on Laurel Street and elsewhere are fiscal year 14 projects. But it's hard to see the slide here, but it's really a dramatic improvement, especially with road resurfacing. And resurfacing is always much less costly than full-depth construction, and that's why it's important to have an annual maintenance program and really invest in those one-time capital costs. And then this is sidewalks. You know, if you live in a street that has old sidewalks, you know how they buckle and the seams become tripping hazards. And this is something we try and be really aggressive about. And new smooth sidewalks are a great enhancement for pedestrians and cyclists and for safety. And then guardrail is another thing with all the dingles and different culverts and things we have, it's important to have guardrails so people feel protected. This is the center school playground that was done. This is a good project. The playground from last year had missing components, and the playscape around it was really kind of worn out, and that was all upgraded as a part of a town meeting action, so we thank you. I have 2 kids at center school, and they report that it was a worthwhile project. So I just want to address a couple of other items before I turn the meeting back over to the moderator. And I apologize for going on a little bit, but I just want to talk about free cash, because that's something I think that's been talked about throughout the community, and I want to make sure we clarify what free cash is and what it is not. Free cash is really the result of the conservative budget assumptions that we use to prepare our budget, and I described that earlier. And if you budget conservatively, and either your revenues and or your expenditures come in better than projected, then you have what's called free cash, or in other words, a budget surplus. It is not a recurring sum of money, because it really is, you have good fortune during the year on your revenues and or your expenditures. So the select board has a policy that the general reserve balance, which is the combined fund of free cash and our stabilization funds, should be maintained at a level between 5 to 10% of general fund operating revenues. The budget that's presented to you, if approved, would get that number to 6%, which is really on the low end. And I want to highlight here as well that free cash has not been a steady stream of money. The amounts have gone up and down year to year, and it really is to some extent unpredictable each year. Every dollar in our line item budget is spoken for through some line item purpose. We don't budget for free cash. So why does this matter, this policy that we have on free cash? Well, general reserves are to provide flexibility and sustain service levels in economic volatility and during emergency situations. An example of that was the October 2011 snowstorm. Through the use of some free cash, we were able to sustain services and absorb the cost of the cleanup from that storm. The other thing is lower reserves could have the potential to lower your bond rating. That's we have a AA2 bond rating, which is one of the highest around for a community of our economic profile. This is what our auditors just told us. And so I asked the question, if one of the things I know bond rating agencies look at are your reserves. In the case of the high school project, if our bond rating was just one step lower, just one notch lower, it would have meant an increase in interest cost of $850,000. So it makes a big difference if you don't have and sustain healthy reserves. So how is free cash used? Per town policy, free cash should not be used for recurring operational expenses. It should be used for one-time or semi-recurring expenses, and it should be preserved for unforeseen circumstances. In addition to the snowstorm example, I'll give you a few other examples of free cash. Article 3 that you approved is an appropriation of free cash to cover a snow and ice deficit. We can't predict how Mother Nature is going to treat us one winter to the next, and we appropriate about $100,000. And if we have a light winter, it'll come in less. If we have a heavy winter like we did this last one, it comes in more. And free cash is intended to cover one-time things like that. We also were on the losing end of an appellate tax board case for the valuation of Twin Hills Country Club, and we were able to use a free cash appropriation to cover for that unforeseen expense. Another example is the triennial revaluation as a part of our assessment. Now that's something that happens every 3 years, but it's not an annual expense. It only recurs semi-annually, so that's something that is also an appropriate use of free cash. And then last fall, we did an appropriation of $25,000 to improve the crosswalk signals at a particular intersection where there had been an accident. So to conclude, the recommended fiscal year 2015 town budget is balanced as required by the charter. Recurring operational expenses are funded by recurring revenues. Town services are maintained. Key service areas are expanded. Significant investment is made in our infrastructure, and revenues are enhanced, or excuse me, and reserves are enhanced. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Further discussion on the amendment? Yes, ma'am.
Stephanie Jasmine, 123 Englewood Road. Could I get some clarification as to Article 7? Is the operating budget total what is written on the warrant?
Ms. Angelides.
The amendment that I read is what you're reading in the warrant, and that is the total amount. And the total amount is $59,099,627,000.
Further discussion on the amendment? Yes, sir.
Thomas Manella, 35 Blockland Drive. A clarification also, will we have discussion on the budget itself after we vote on the amendment?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote on the amendment. An amendment, ladies and gentlemen, requires a majority vote. So, all those in favor of the amendment as read, would you signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? The amendment passes a majority affirmative vote. Now we move on to discussion of the main motion as amended under Article 7. Ms. Jasmine.
I move that the town amend Article 7 to increase the amount to be raised and appropriated by $407,459, and that the funds be allocated to the school department so that the fiscal year 2015 operating budget will now total $59,507,086.
All right, do I hear a second? Do I hear a second? All right, gotta speak up. Yes, may I have that amendment, please? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have an amendment on the floor. So we will speak to the amendment. Ms. Jasmine.
As some of you may know, over the past few months, I've been fighting for the town to fund full-day kindergarten. I took this issue on solely because I believe that the public education our school district recommends for all students should be provided to all students and not just those who can afford to pay for it. In 2010, Massachusetts adopted the Common Core state standards, and with that came known changes in expectations for what kindergarten students would need to learn. Next year is the first year Longmeadow will be held accountable to those standards, and as a result, the full-day kindergarten program is now the only kindergarten program our school district is recommending for all students next year. An email sent out to parents by a committee comprised of the Longmeadow superintendent, teachers, and principals stated, quote, "The kindergarten curriculum that is taught next year will align with the rigorous Common Core standards. This curriculum requires that children attend a full-day program in order to learn all that is required. It cannot be covered in half a day. In order to provide the education necessary to prepare kindergartners for future learning, a full-day program is necessary," end quote. The Longmeadow superintendent wrote in the budget for next year, quote, "The new Common Core curriculum provides rigorous standards for our kindergartners, and a full-day program is highly recommended in order for students to succeed. Early intervention is critical to students' success. The fee for attending full-day kindergarten will be $3,000, end quote. The only way to ensure that every child in Longmeadow will receive the kindergarten program that the school district is recommending is for the town to fund it, just as it funds grades 1 through 12. I am aware of statements that have been made by town officials with regard to funding this program, statements about having to cut down programs and jobs because they don't want to use the expected $1.1 million in reserves. stating that using those reserves would not be best fiscal policy. So I ask, does best fiscal policy prevail over basic ethical practice? Past actions by the Select Board's use of free cash to protect town services would say ethical practice has prevailed. Full-day kindergarten is the only kindergarten program being recommended by the school district for all students next year. As a community, voting in favor of including full-day kindergarten in the town budget is the only way to ensure that every child in Longmeadow has an equal chance to receive the public education recommended by our school district. As was written in a recent newspaper article on full-day kindergarten by one of our current Select Board members, we may go overboard these days with all the things we think children deserve, but it seems undeniable that Longmeadow children deserve an equal chance to receive a public school education. If we cannot abide by that principle, we will have failed as a community.
Further discussion on the amendment? Yes, sir.
Stephen Metz, 171 Coventry Lane. Every town meeting I've been at, we always hear people stand up and say, oh, we need to give this to our kids. And I'm all for giving everything that's important to our kids. However, study after study has been provided to say what really counts for our kids. And I have dated I'm almost 70 years old, and I've seen study after study for things like Head Start and all sorts of preschool education. There's never been anything that has come out that shows that kindergarten or Head Start or any of these preschool education programs has done anything that has shown any difference in education advantage for past the 3rd grade. Everything levels out after the 3rd grade. All the kindergarten funding for kindergarten seems to do is help people get funding for childcare. If you really want to help the kids, get them to have parents who read to them. That's what they really need. We've also heard a very eloquent discussion. All you do by taking money from one hand and giving it to another is just change the way the pie is sliced. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Larry Starr, 81 Williamsburg Drive. I'm just finishing, I'm retiring, 17 years on the high school council. I go out with Larry Birdie. We retire together. So I've spent a lot of time in the educational side of our town. The issue of all-day kindergarten from an academic standpoint, from a study of whether it works, has no data that it works. All the studies show that all-day versus half-day does not produce any lasting benefit. That's what Steve was just saying. I brought the studies with me, so if anybody wants to see them, but we can talk about it, and I will read a couple of the conclusions. The issue here really is these new standards, and I've been around long enough that I was here when MCAS came in, and I said at that point, we really don't care about MCAS, our kids will blow it away, and we do blow it away every year. The new criteria that have been proposed, there's no guarantee that they will be in existence 3 years from now. For those of you who remember new math, for those of you who remember creative spelling, my kids went through that in elementary school, much to the chagrin of some of our parents. The education system comes up with wonderful new things because they're educators, and that's what they do. Very few of them seem to work. The biggest issue and the biggest area where there may be some benefit from full-day kindergarten is not Longmeadow. Okay? It may be Springfield, it may be Holyoke, but it isn't Longmeadow. Our kids, the preparation to be successful in schools doesn't come from kindergarten. It comes from age 3 and up. And frankly, that's delivered by the parents in this town. The kids that are delivered to the front door of those schools are kids that are prepared for school. And they are prepared because of what they have gotten in the years before that. The extra half year of kindergarten, the studies show, doesn't make any difference. There's a slight advantage at the end of kindergarten, a slight advantage to kids who took all year versus half year. It's gone, completely gone, by 2nd grade in all schools. In Long Meadow, it's unlikely that there would even be that. So we're looking at standards that more than likely are not going to be in existence very long. The pushback out there on these standards that have been written by government bureaucrats who really don't know what they're doing, if you've looked at what some of the questions that are included in this material, it's an aggressive program, but it probably can't be done, okay? And it won't be successful. Head Start was mentioned, another program that provides no long-term benefits. We've been through the DARE program, wonderful program, produces no benefits. We've spent money on all kinds of educational ideas that don't produce benefits. Let's wait and see if there's any benefits to this program. Let's wait and see if this program is in existence in 2 years before we decide that we need to pay for something that is not legally required, and that frankly, the school committee has done a phenomenal job, because we've gone from a system where if you want all-day kindergarten, if you think that's important so that you can work or so that you can provide some additional educational enhancement to your child that you can't do at home, if you think that's important, you now have the guaranteed right, the guaranteed option, rather, to put your kid in an all-day program. That previously was not there. It was a lottery, and not everybody got in. In addition, once you won the lottery, you got a bill for $4,500. The school committee has done a phenomenal job and brought us a program where for those who want it, without asking your fellow taxpayers to pay your bill, okay, if you think it's important, there's no guarantee there is, and there's no statistics and no academic proof that it is. But if you think it is, now you can do it, and you can do it for $3,000 instead of $4,500, and you don't have to win the lottery to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thomas Manella, 35 Blockland Drive. I'm going to be the clarification guy, I think, tonight, but are we voting on amendment for a line item increase for full-day kindergarten alone, or is this a general increase to the school budget in the amount listed in the amendment?
If you can answer that, Mr. Gold.
I had some prepared, thank you, prepared comments, but I'm just going to read you a quotation from Mass General Laws, that's Chapter 71, Section 34, that says, "In acting on appropriations for educational costs, the city or town appropriating body shall vote on the total amount of the appropriation requested and shall not allocate appropriations among accounts or place any restriction on any such appropriation." So the answer is we're voting on a total dollar increase. The amendment proposes a total dollar increase to the school department and does not and cannot, by state law, compel line item spending on full-day kindergarten.
I appreciate that information. Can I make a comment as well?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator, please permit me to speak the obvious here, but people move to Long Meadow because of the schools, and that's why my family and I moved our children here. That's why I have a mortgage that very well might outlive me. It is because of the schools. Every single one of us in this room, regardless of our children's age, our own ages, will go to sleep tonight in an enormous financial asset because of the quality of the schools of this community. This is an issue that impacts every single one of us. I'm a college professor. I am seeing firsthand the integration of technology in the college curriculum. For those of you who have college-age children, you probably hear the stories as well. Tablet computers, iPads. The cost of education is soaring, and this technology embedding is going to trickle down into the K-12 sector soon. In fact, it is in larger metropolitan areas. The cost of education is about to increase very dramatically, very quickly, and this flatline budget that we heard today is woefully inadequate. If we vote to support the budget unamended, we are making a long-term vote to decline the quality of our schools, which is a long-term vote to decline the cost or the financial asset of our property. I would ask my fellow townspeople to support this amendment as an increase in the total school budget to keep our schools as strong as they are today moving forward into the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment, Mr. Gold.
Thank you. I'm speaking against the amendment. Although I empathize with the concerns of those proposing the amendment, and their concerns are probably because of the messages they got about education. potential of having children in multiple schools at the same time with potentially different schedules, I can't support the proposed amendment because the funding proposal, raise and appropriate, will have a serious negative impact on the general government's ability to provide needed services to town residents and will raise taxes for all town residents. So let me go through why I believe that. Rather than request additional appropriations from raise and appropriate, the petitioners could have requested funding from any one of several other different sources, and I believe any other one of them might have had and would have had far less of an impact on town finances and services than the amendment that's before us at this time. Funds could have been requested from our reserve fund, which is the town's rainy day fund or savings account, but they weren't requested from there. They could have been requested by a Proposition 2.5 override, where all the townspeople would have had a chance to vote on it, but they weren't voted from a Proposition 2.5 override, perhaps because there was a concern that taxes would go up. But I will show you shortly why your taxes will go up by the same amount anyway. And finally, the funds could have been raised by having the school committee, requesting the school committee use unencumbered funds from the current budget. So let me explain what unencumbered funds are. Our finance department and the school's finance department are currently projecting that over $600,000 of taxpayers' funds appropriated at last year's town meeting will not be needed to operate the schools this year. On June 30th, the end of the current fiscal year, any such funds not used by the school committee can be, and in of recent past years have been, returned to the town through a process called turnbacks. Late in the fall, around November-ish, only after the state certifies the amount of those turnbacks and the overall finances of the town does the Department of Revenue certify what we then call free cash, funds that are available to the town to be appropriated for other uses. However, the school committee could today decide that, for example, if they needed new 6th grade social studies books, through a simple majority vote, they could encumber the cost of those books and, if you will, roll over the funds needed to purchase the books from this year's budget to next year's budget. The surplus funds that would be turned back and made available as free cash would be reduced by the amount encumbered for the books. Similarly, the school committee could encumber the $477,000 required to fund free full-day kindergarten next year. But that was not requested, nor did the school committee do that. So it's important to note, as I had said earlier to the other gentleman's question, that under Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 34, with respect to the school department budget, town meeting, and I'll repeat this, quote, shall not allocate appropriations among accounts or place any restrictions on such appropriations, unquote. In short, we cannot compel the school committee to spend funds on any item, either by encumbrance or by line item appropriation. What this means is that even if this amendment passes, there is no requirement that the school committee use these funds for full-day kindergarten. I understand the school committee took a vote to accept the funds, but my understanding is they did not vote on how they would spend the funds. And if they voted to accept funds out of pocket of the general government departments and programs and implied these funds would be used for free all-day kindergarten, why won't they vote to encumber funds currently under their control, and by doing so, remove the implications from the vote? I'm at a loss to understand how that this year, an election year, with 4 members of a majority of the school committee up for election, the petitioners did not seek that process for getting school funds encumbered for the use of full-day kindergarten. Yes, there are problems with doing that, but that would have been the cleaner way to do that. But I'm digressing a little bit from the motion, so let me directly express the issue of why I urge you to vote against this amendment. First of all, the full cost of the full-day kindergarten is not $407,000, but it's $477,000. $407,000 is the cost to the school department for hiring additional teachers and aides to run kindergarten. But those people, when they come to work, expect benefits. It's $70,000 worth of benefits as defined by our HR department and our CFO. So the amendment will take $477,000 from town operations. I've anecdotally heard that supporters believe we can get the money from free cash and there'll be no effect on town services. But the fact is that those funds are not guaranteed to be available at all. And if they do become available, they can't be tapped by the town until certified by the Department of Revenue and appropriated at a special fall town meeting. This appropriation for use of future possible free cash kind of reminds me of the negotiations we just finished with MGM. MGM insisted there be no impact on the casino of the casino on Longmeadow. But don't worry if there were impacts, we should just keep track of them, and a year or so from now, they'd consider reimbursing us for the expenses. What we explained to MGM, and what I'm explaining to you now, is that our town employees, the banks that hold their mortgages, and the supermarkets where they shop, won't accept an IOU instead of a paycheck. Don't worry if the school department does turn back sufficient funds, and if the DOR does certify the free cash, and if it's voted for at a special town meeting in the fall, we'll be able to pay you folks in December the money that we owe you beginning July 1st. That just doesn't work. So the town has plenty of free cash, people say, to get us through this and until these free cash funds materialize in November. Well, I'm here to tell you that our town's free cash situation isn't what it was a year ago. A year ago, we could wait for appropriations in the fall. A year ago, we had millions of dollars in the bank that we borrowed to build the high school that had not yet been used to pay the bills for the high school. This year, the high school project is complete, and not only is the $44 million that we borrowed fully expended, but some of you heard at the last select board meeting, we've actually expended $470,000 more than we borrowed. The result of unforeseen circumstances, project changes, and additions whose cost must be borne entirely by the town. And not only have we put out that $470,000, we've also paid out multiples of that amount in expected costs for which we are still owed reimbursement by the Mass School Building Authority. Don't get me wrong, the Mass School Building Authority is expected to pay what they owe, but their final repayments to us are contingent upon the completion of project commissioning, an audit that will probably not be completed until the fall. All I can say is thank goodness FEMA, MEMA, and the Mass Highway departments have reimbursed us almost all the October 2011 storm costs. If you recall, we borrowed $12 million to clean up that storm. Our town CFO and Paul Pasterczyk and town treasurer Mary Pequenot have done a great job of balancing our cash flow, deferring the repayments of the storm-related loans so that the cash influx we got from that can help us pay for our high school construction costs cash flow situation. So I want to make sure you've noted the fact that as of today, the town's expended $470,000 for the high school project above the amount that was borrowed for the project. It's interesting that that's the same amount that's going to cost us approximately if this amendment passes. It's my intent, and I believe the intent of others on the select board, to recommend at the fall town meeting that if there is free cash available, that it be used to pay for this high school building overrun, a one-time expense using one-time funds. However, if free cash is not available to pay for the cost of the school, we will have to borrow the money. Remember, 3 years ago, town residents authorized the borrowing of $77 million for the building of the school. To date, we borrowed $44 million. We thought that was all we were going to need, but we will need a little bit more. But remember then that no further approval is needed to borrow additional funds. If you do some simple math and you take $470,000 for the cost overrun on the high school, and you figure the cost of borrowing, the cost of issuing the loan, and interest, it's about $500,000, and with about 5,000 residents in town, the number comes out to be about $100 a residence. Okay? So the bottom line is that funding free kindergarten today will require us to borrow the $500,000, and it'll cost everybody $100. So I just thought everybody should know that is the difference. There will be an impact on general government programs as well. So if whether the funds are for free kindergarten are achieved through encumbrance of funds or through the passage of this amendment, there will be an additional $100 $100 per person approximately added to your tax bill. The only difference between the two is that the passage of this amendment will also require us to cut an equivalent amount of spending from the general government side to compensate for the expenditures that will have to flow to kindergarten programming beginning in the new fiscal year. So here's the bottom line. Outside of Paul Pasturzik, our town CFO, I believe I understand the town's budget as well as anybody in this room. I can say with great assurance that passage of this amendment will have a measurable detrimental effect on the town's ability to fund the general government's programs and services as proposed in the budget. It's not a threat, it's not scare tactics, it's economics and mathematics. So I urge you to vote against the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. Further discussion on the motion, on the amendment, rather. Mr. Elias.
Steve Metz from 171 Coventry Lane. So
Wait a
after-
minute. Oh, I recognize Mr. Elias.
I'm sorry.
Richard Elias, 608 Frank Smith Road. I'm kind of split on this thing. It's goes without saying that full-day kindergarten would be an enrichment for the children. It's better for them to be in school learning something than sitting in front of a TV. Taking that aside, it's still better for them to be with their family and learning with their family and being with their family. Second, this is all based on the federal standards. If you look at the federal standards, it's not compatible with the goal of the school committee. Federal standards are would be dumbing down us because it's equalization with all the other schools in the districts. Where we go for excellence, federal standards just want everybody to be equal. Could save us money in the long run, but I don't think we want that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elias. Further discussion on the amendment. Dr. Metz.
Yes, as I listened to Mr. Gold, what I heard was that for 10 months, a parent can spend $300 a month, and or they can let the rest of the town spend $100 a year in taxes, so that they can spend their own money on themselves and let us forego getting our sidewalks fixed, our guardrails fixed, our potholes filled. I think that I'd let them spend their $300 a month for 10 months and let me get my potholes filled and my guardrails fixed and my sidewalks filled. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment.
Jeffrey Klotz, 487 Converse Street. For those of us who don't live and breathe poli-sci, if we choose to not like the results that a given budget delivers, and we vote not to accept the budget, what happens?
Further discussion on the amendment. Yes, ma'am. I don't. Sure.
Jeff, can I get you to clarify the question? I'm sorry.
What is your name again? I'm sorry, sir.
Jeff Kloss, Mr. Crane. If the town chooses not to approve the budget, what happens? Administratively, what does our finance director, our school committee, et cetera, what is their charge from that moment forward if the town says we're not happy with the budget?
We have to approve a budget under the charter and
So you give us a
Massachusetts
budget
general law.
tonight,
Wait,
and we
just
can't-
a second. Wait. You speak, and then he speaks.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Let him answer your question, please.
Under the charter and under Massachusetts general law, we have to pass a budget, and it has to be balanced. And I don't know what the penalties are for not doing that, but it is we are compelled to do it under the law.
Absolutely. Does that mean this evening?
I think that's to some extent up to the. Right. It has to be in place for the new fiscal year. I'm told by town council.
So, town council, does that mean that if the town says no to the budget, we would have to have another budget presented? And in that process, other actions could be incorporated, as Mr. Gold was saying, cannot be done at this evening's meeting?
The budget, one of the purposes of the warrant,
Procedurally speaking.
the budget is in the warrant, and that makes it the budget proposal.
Excuse me just a moment. Is the Long Meadow van driver present here for the adult van? There is a medical emergency of someone who needs to be driven home. Yeah. Oh, Ms. Grady is heading that way. I'm sorry, sir. Mr. Crane?
Okay, so you have to have a budget in place by July 1st. And if you want the town council to explain what the penalties are, we can do that. But you have to have it's the legislative branch's obligation to do that. That's one of the jobs of town meeting. The budget proposal is published in the warrant, which makes it the proposal of record. And so town meeting has to amend the budget in a fashion that it finds more suitable if it disagrees with the presented one, and then approve a budget by July 1st. I don't know how else to answer it besides that.
So just to make sure I understand this, if the town voted no on the budget, another budget would have to be presented.
Well,
and it would not have to be done this evening.
First
it would
of
have to be done by July 1st.
It would not have to be done this evening, but again, the budget was published in the warrant.
Yeah.
First of all, we're talking on the amendment. We're not talking about the budget. We're talking about the amendment, sir. Discussion is on the amendment, not about the budget. You have a chance to ask your question about the budget.
The purpose of the amendment, if I understand it correctly, is there's a citizen who wants to change how funds are allocated, which is a budgeting process. What I'm asking procedurally is if there's another way of making sure that that constituent's wishes could be handled. I'm not speaking whether I agree or disagree. I'm just trying to figure out a way to make everybody happy. And it seems as though there is a way to do it. I'm sorry I didn't give you guys accounting gobbledygook. I can do that too.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Jessica Reyes, 42 Hazelwood Ave. So some of the previous speakers have engaged in whether kindergarten is worthless or whether it's great. I personally believe kindergarten is valuable. I also know that a lot of the education, thank you. I also know that in the education literature, it's really hard to figure out exactly what does work. So stating that there are many, many papers that show that kindergarten doesn't work, you could say that about education in general. So I think that just needs to be put aside as a way to make decisions. I also agree with the proposer that it should be, to quote, that it should be available to all, not just those who can afford to pay for it. But I'm also aware that our capacity as a town to raise revenue is fixed. So I am in the middle here. I mean, we can't use free cash over and over again. So if we use free cash, or if we do some other kind of stopgap thing, that's a one-year solution. What we need is to figure out if as a town we're committing to full-day kindergarten, and if so, come up with a permanent solution, which for me is a Prop 2.5 override, which I would happily support. But we don't have one of those in front of us right now. So we're in a situation. In the meantime, I would suggest that the school board think about doing something that achieves full-day kindergarten for all and allows everyone to have access regardless of whether they can afford to pay the $3,000. And what I would propose, it's a little complicated, but it's not that complicated, is a sliding scale of tuition, which would mean that everyone with family income of $50,000 or below would pay nothing. And then for every every $1,000 of income above that, a family pays $50. What would this mean? At the average income in the town of Long Meadow, the average income is around $100,000. Both the mean and the median are close to $100,000. That means the average family, and that's for average for family with kids, the average family would be paying $2,500, which is what the school board, close to what the school board suggested. It is also a lot less than what has been paid by people who were very happy to win the lottery. This would then max out at $5,000 of tuition for families with income of $150,000 or above. What I think this would do is achieve both things. So if we're trying to achieve that this should be available to all, not just those who can afford to pay for it, these seem to me at least to be reasonable numbers. I know we can't say exactly what the school board would do, but I disagree with what the proposer said, that the only way to do this, to ensure this, is for the town to fund it in this particular manner. I disagree with that. If we have some kind of more creative proposal, then we can have full-day kindergarten for all. No one would be unable to partake of full-day kindergarten if they wish to because of inability to pay. And this would only cost $100,000 rather than the $470 or the $400 or whatever. It would cost, from my calculations, $100,000, which the school board could do with existing funds that they already have. So I do agree with quote one, what I call quote one, that should be available to all regardless of ability to pay. But I disagree with the fact that the only way to do this is by raising revenue that we don't have the ability to raise right now and burdening other funds. And I do really agree with the argument that if we risk our bond rating, that is an incredibly costly and risky thing for us to do as a town, which could burden us, cost us much, much more in the long run. So I really hope that we can come up with some kind of stopgap measure and then have a Prop 2.5 override and commit ourselves to this down the line. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment? Yes, ma'am.
Margaret Rockus, 67 Shady Side Drive. I'm first generation college. Nobody can say that education isn't important, because I have found that it was. However, I have pulled down the Common Core standards. And frankly, while I think that the 1 in 5 children in poverty could very, very much benefit from these stronger standards in their schools and a full-day kindergarten, I'm concerned that what I'm hearing is that if your child doesn't go to full-day kindergarten here in Longmeadow, that they're not going to be able to achieve any sort of education. The standards are things like count up to 5, count 0 to 10. For print concepts, follow words left to right, top to bottom, and page by page. Now, there's long, long lists of these standards, and I am not for 1 second suggesting that anybody in this room could jump in and be a kindergarten teacher, because I could not manage 15 to 18 5- and 6-year-old children and teach at the same time. Those women and some men who do this have my undying respect. But my understanding is the school board has adopted a sliding scale already, and I do believe that any child in Longmeadow who qualifies for free or reduced price lunch should get kindergarten for free, because those people are in food insecure families and we need to help them. However, if you have made financial commitments into your family that mean that you cannot afford, even with a sliding scale, and you're not qualifying for free or reduced price lunch, if you have financial commitments, maybe a 10-year mortgage, maybe you just don't want to pay the money, there is absolutely no reason, with over 80% of the adults 25 and over in this town having at least some college or an associate's degree, and over 60% having a bachelor's degree or higher. Folks, parents, you can do this. You are already doing this. You have already taught your children to speak. you have potty trained them. Those are huge neurological things. You are not being asked, if you choose not to enroll in full-day kindergarten, you are not being asked to teach 15 children. You are simply being asked to do what you are probably already doing with your children. Talk to them, read to them, count with them at the grocery store. To have the town dip into free cash reserves, and maybe I've missed something, but I don't see a plan for funding kindergarten past this year. So we're going to be back to the drama next year, I guess. So what we need to do is take care of those who have medical problems in their family or employment problems, cannot pay, sliding scale, and parents who choose or who cannot pay the full amount but who are ineligible for sliding scale. You can certainly bring your child to the same educational level because you are an educated person. Lastly, let's not forget, this year there are 9 weeks of summer vacation. While there might be some kind of difference with some of the children at the end of 9 months, exactly how much do you think they are going to retain in September? We all know, those of us with children in the schools, September is review. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, Jim Moran, 48 Avondale Road. Now we can argue about the size of the FY15 school department budget, but the real issue is why did the school superintendent and the school committee prioritize the free all-day kindergarten at such a low level that it never made the cut in terms of services they would provide to the town of Long Meadow, all right, and make it fail to meet the cut in terms of dollars funded. There are other programs that got implemented, but that to me is the big question as to why the school committee did that. One might suspect that some hidden motives by the school committee, such as choose a hot-button topic, let the town meeting and some vocal parents provide additional funding, as they did last year. The latest school committee statement says that they'll accept the additional money if approved at the town meeting. It sounds very much like what happened last year. It makes me wonder whether this was the plan from the beginning. Now, I have a question also. The $407,000 becomes a permanent addition to our school department budget. Next year it's there, so we will be able to fund it next year if they choose to use that money. The suggestion that Mark Gold made, Selectman Mark Gold made, was that they have funds they're going to turn back to the town, $650,000, whatever it is. Why not use that to fund all-day kindergarten? Well, the problem is they will not get that additional increment in the fiscal 16 budget because that money is coming from the 14 budget. And this is, for example, the one thing I think a lot of people don't understand, that the $615,000 or $650,000 that's turned back this year from the school department budget, we set the FY15 a starting point where the 14 was budgeted, not what they actually spent. So this is kind of a growing budget, and we're talking about $407,000 that over the next 5 years is $2 million, because that's in the budget. That's a permanent addition. It's not like building the high school that it goes away at some point. It becomes a continuing growth. So I just ask the school committee and the school, maybe Mr. Clark will answer that question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. Are we ready to vote on this amendment, ladies and gentlemen? Mr. Clark, please.
In response to Mr. Moran's question, as well as a statement that the school committee prepared last night, that was our last actual vote. The school committee is not in any way affiliated with the group known as Residents for Equality in Kindergarten Education, nor do we support their proposed amendment to the budget. Our proposed budget offers an improvement over the current kindergarten program. We eliminated the lottery, opening our new program to all students who wish to attend full day, and we reduced the cost of tuition by 25%. And while we aspire to be able to provide all children with access to free full-day kindergarten in the future, the school committee made conscious decisions to prioritize programs that have the greatest impact on the greatest number of students. We cannot, in good faith, support this amendment at the expense of valuable town services for all residents, although we encourage you to vote your conscience. Thank you.
All right, are we ready to vote? Well, two more speakers here. Ms. Jasmine?
I just wanted to say that 87% of Massachusetts children attend full-day kindergarten. It is the only kindergarten program our superintendent and our school district is recommending for all children. In order to provide it to all children, the town needs to fund it.
All right, thank you.
Thomas Manila, 35 Blockland Drive. Thank you for indulging me. I'll keep this brief. Please remember, we are not voting on a full-day kindergarten program. That was made clear from the front of the room. We are voting on an increase to the school budget from 1.7% to 3.4%. That's all we're doing. We're increasing the budget of the school. How that money is spent is at the discretion of the school committee, the superintendent, and the principals. This is not a vote on the full-day kindergarten program.
Okay. Further discussion on the amendment?
Ron Nadell, 37 Academy Drive. I would just question the figure the last speaker gave, particularly in reference to the town of Newton, Massachusetts, which I would consider to be pretty much on a par scholastically with what Longmeadow currently has. And I inquired of a resident of Newton last weekend what was going on there, and he said they are not going to have full-day kindergarten in Newton this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Angelides, please.
I would like to clarify a point of a previous speaker, and that's saying that the school budget's a flat budget. And no, I respect the work that the school committee's done. They spent a lot of hours on it. They did put in a new program that the superintendent could not go into tonight because she couldn't come, which was a literacy enhancement program for the early elementary school years. And that was a $500,000 program, and it's very important, and that is something that the schools really worked on. I think it is important, and they did prioritize it. I wanted to speak against this amendment. We will, as a board, meet tomorrow if they have decided to increase by the $400,000. The select board will meet and we will look at cuts because we think it's very, very important that we come out with a balanced budget. Everyone's worked very hard to make this a balanced budget. It is very important, we believe, for fiscal, conservative, responsible, for the town and how we will be looked at as we've talked about with the bonding in the future. So we do not want to use free cash for that. So this is something we will sit down and we will try to see which will be the least painful for the various departments. The departments have all handed in possible cuts and where the various ones will go, and the select board will have to make that decision tomorrow if this does go through. I think that the selectman, Mr. Gold, made a very good point that we do have this high school. There are costs that we're trying to figure out what we will get from the state and what we won't get from the state. And that's something we will have to decide in the fall. So when you look at budgeting, it's a multi-year issue. It's going up and down, and there are a lot of things that we need to consider when it comes to the fall. So the select board will make the necessary cuts if this does go through. So I do speak against the amendment now. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
David Munrick, 85 Greenacre. Just a quick point on the numbers that I'm seeing. Website Strategies for Children said 242 out of 351 towns and census-designated places in Massachusetts have full-day free kindergarten. Just to clarify the statistics. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yes?
Janet Robinson, 57 Canterbury Lane, member of the school committee, co-chair of the kindergarten committee. And just to address the issue that keeps getting brought up about one statement that was made very early on in the process, it has been stated by the superintendent that both half-day kindergarten and full-day kindergarten programs are going to cover the same curriculum. Due to the different amount of time that the children are actually in class, the full-day kindergarten students will have more time to explore, more time to delve deeper into content, and have more repetition, along with time to focus on play, which is a developmentally appropriate way of learning. It is not, we rely very heavily on our very talented teachers who are going to be working together this summer to come up with common curriculum. All of the bases that have to be taught that are part of the Common Core curriculum will be presented to both half-day and full-day students. It is the amount of time that they will have on each topic that is different. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ray?
AJ Ray, 19 Longfellow. Mr. Moderator, I would wonder if you would entertain a motion to move the question.
Do I hear a second? There's a motion to move the previous question, which has been moved and seconded. There is no debate on a motion to move the previous question. We will move directly to a vote. On the motion to move the previous question requires a 2/3 vote, which means that we would go, the result of a favorable vote on the motion to move the previous question, we go directly to a vote on the amendment. So, all those in favor of moving the previous question, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? The motion passes by declaration, 2/3. We now move directly, the motion passes. We now move to a vote on the amendment, which is before the town meeting, which says, move that the town amend Article 7 to increase the amount to be raised and appropriated by $407,000, $459, and that the funds be allocated to the school department so that the fiscal year 2015 operating budget will now total $59,507,086. This requires a majority vote, ladies and gentlemen, because it's an amendment. All those in favor of the amendment as read, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? The nays have it. The amendment fails. Majority negative vote. Now we are back on the budget as amended. Right. Mr. Ray.
Mr. Moderator, I wonder if you would entertain a motion to move the question on the amended budget.
Well, I decline to do that right now. Is there any further discussion on the articles, the Article 7 as amended? Seeing none, we're going to move directly to a vote on the motion under Article 7 as amended. The first amendment, right? We're on the main motion as amended the first time. That requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 7 as amended, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? The motion passes, majority affirmative vote. Move along to consideration to the motion under Article 30.
Article 30, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds.
Mr. Wojcik, please. You are recognized, sir.
Thank you. Article 30, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds in the Treasury the sum of $35,000 to complete the study of options to providing truly suitable space and facilities for the Long Meadow Council on Aging Center, or take any other action relative thereto.
That is a motion that has been moved and seconded. I'll accept that motion.
Read the second part.
Mr. Wojcik.
Okay. Work, excuse me, work done in May 2013 helped to define those services available to those in town over the age of 55 of Long Meadow's population. Among the conclusions was the statement made that our current adult center, now housed in the abandoned Greenwood Park School, and by today's standard excuse me, is woefully inadequate. It's proposed to complete a study of options to satisfying the needs for a facility to house an expanded set of educational, social, and health-related programs which would attract and engage the town's adults. This study would be presented to the town's voters with a request for approval of future actions. Mr. Moderator.
That motion is, did I hear a second? Motion's moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion, Mr. Wojcik.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like your permission to introduce John.
Speak into the microphone, Mr.
Okay, I'd like your permission to introduce John Catlin, a non-resident, to speak to this motion.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is a request by Mr. Wojcik as sponsor of this motion to allow a non-resident to make a short presentation to the town meeting in support of this motion. I have talked to Mr. Wojcik. I am allowing him 5 to 8 minutes to make his presentation. He will entertain no questions. He will retire from the floor after he makes his presentation. You have the floor, sir. Where is he?
I'm one of the community's older adults, and I'm speaking for you this evening. Like most others, with age, our health and fitness and our social situation has deteriorated, and frankly, we're not really prepared to accept these changes or compensate for them. Our health requires more and different maintenance. We're losing some of our friends. We can't or don't go out as often or go as far away for our entertainment. We need a place to meet and to work with others. We want the opportunity to explore and create new interests to replace those which we can no longer do. And we need the support of others like us. The work of the Adult Center to help us is a start, but it's hampered by severe limitations as we seniors increase in number and request an amount and kinds of services that the center cannot provide. Space and the arrangement of space are big issues, as the Adult Center is housed in part of actually a 50-plus-year-old grade school, which simply isn't suitable. A small group of us has spoken with John Catlin, as John Catlin has considerable expertise in senior center design. John is a partner in the firm of Catlin and Petrovic Architects. His firm is one of the most experienced and highly acclaimed design professionals specializing in senior center facilities in the country, and has completed over 40 such centers in a multi-state area. John's been in practice for 40 years, which makes him an older adult also. He's a member of the Council on Aging and the National Institute of Senior Centers. He lectures nationally on the subject and has recently presented in Washington, D.C. and right here in Sturbridge. He suggests that we just get right down to it and study the options we have to make our town's adult center work for us well into the future. So what we're requesting this evening is funding for the study. I've asked John to visit and describe very briefly, which means you get 5 minutes, maybe 6, his approach to designing suitable senior facilities for a town like ours. John Catlin, where do you go? Good, thanks, John.
Thanks, Roger. I'm going to do a very brief presentation. It's really going to be about why we build these kinds of centers and why a senior center. So it's really about demographics. You get a sense, I think he suggested I've been working at this for about 40 years, and I'm now a member, a real card-carrying member of the older adult generation. The demographics are very interesting. I'm going to talk about this town from 1980 to 2010. These are real census numbers. They're not projected or figured out. But the town census in 1980 was 16,301. And by 2010, this town actually has reduced its population by about 4%. What's also interesting, the school-age population, and this is true throughout not only the Commonwealth, but we're seeing this all over the country. that the school-age population, which was about 4,800 in town in 1980, is down to 3,472, or a 39% decrease in young children who are attending our schools. However, what's really interesting is that the 60-plus population has done what we call an inversion. In 1980, there was about 2,000 or so seniors and about 4,800 students. By 2010, that reversed itself, that the student population is down to 3,472, and the older adults are at 4,000 plus. That's a 38% increase. There's a real change in our whole society and culture related to aging. So Carl Jung, who was a philosopher back in the past century, the 20th century, said life is circular, and we begin dependent and we leave dependent. And that was really certainly true back in the teens and 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, but it really began to change as our population began to get older, and we began to understand more about what it means to age and age healthy. So successful aging is really about, I'm sorry, that's really tiny, I can't even read it. The goal of a successful adult center is to reverse this dependency as we get older, and to provide the environment which gives us what we call successful aging. And we do that through three key things, and it happens in this kind of a center. We provide nutrition, socialization, and exercise. And those are the key components to healthy aging. As we get older, if frailty comes about, it's really because of a couple of issues. One, lack of any one of these three items in our lifestyle. Number two, perhaps a DNA issue, a genetic issue, or an accident or an illness. But if you don't have those other things and you do take care of yourself, you age much, much healthier. Part of that is exercise. I want to get a little bit of humor. It's been a long evening so far. This is one about exercising for elders. Actually, the National Council on Aging says that we should be walking 5 to 8 flights of stairs a day, no matter what our age is. So what is the center all about? It's an infrastructure of support. A senior center is a resource in the community for both seniors and the community, non-seniors. Don't forget, we all have parents and grandparents. They're all people who are going to be using this facility. They'll be making our lives a lot better by aging healthier and staying within their homes. We do this again through these three key issues: socialization, engagement, nutrition, and exercise. So what is this all about? It's about aging in place. That is helping our elders stay in our community, stay right here in Longmeadow, either in their own homes or within a facility within our community. And we do this again through this idea of a focal point. This is what a center is all about. It's really about becoming a part of the community in terms of a gateway to learning about what are the different kinds of resources available for you as an elder, what are things that we can do to stay healthier, how do we stay socially engaged, get out of our house and into a center where fellow friends, neighbors, and even younger people can participate with you. Some examples of what other communities have done. We've done about 40 of these in the state of Massachusetts. There's probably been another 30 or 40 built besides the ones that I've had the honor of designing. But here's a library lounge. I think this, there it is right there. Arts and crafts classroom, or a lecture facility for continuing long-term education. A multi-purpose room or dining room, where all kinds of events can go on. Entertainment, swinging singles parties, whatever it is that should strike your fancy. A drop-in cafe to come in and sit down and read a newspaper with a friend and have a cup of coffee before a special event. Cards with the mayor. This is a picture of the new young mayor in Holyoke at their brand new center. He came in to visit while a group was playing cards. Social opportunities. This is a center in Belmont. Down below, there's another really new key issue that we've added into these senior centers is full fitness facilities. You're never too old to work out. Lift a few weights, do a little aerobic exercising. Some facilities now, we're doing one down in Lexington, Kentucky, that is going to have a full dance studio for aerobics and dance. Some of the ones that they look like on the outside, this is the town of Belmont up on the left. Needham is on the right. Kingston, Massachusetts is down in the lower corner. And Holyoke, close up of the entrance into Holyoke. So it's all about these three key issues, and this is what we're talking about tonight, is going ahead to decide how we're going to develop a building, a facility, if you will, that will take care of and help our older folks age appropriately in our town through nutrition, the socialization. And my little comment about this slide is, it's really hard to see in this light, but we have, we call our seniors, we have different terms for them. We have go-goers, fast-moving seniors. You can see one that's kind of speeding across the front there. We have slow-goers, or somebody with a walker. We have no-goers in wheelchairs, but we accommodate them all. These centers are designed to help all folks come in and take advantage of it. And then finally, healthy aging is about exercise. And these facilities provide us an opportunity to be engaged in physical exercise, which will help us age much, much more healthy. So it comes all about providing the building to have it all happen. One of the most key elements that's interesting about our particular species, the human species, is that we're the only creatures on Earth that specifically and energetically protect, sustain, and nurture their elders. And that's what this little facility is all about. It's about those key issues. So it's about successful aging, and getting a great building is going to help you do that. Thank you very much.
On time. Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. All right, we'll go back to Mr. Kaplan. Will retire from the floor. Yes, sir. Further discussion on the motion under Article 30.
Yes, my name is John Bowen, 114 Emerson Road. Excuse me. Article 30 is the result of 4 years of conscientious work by many Longmeadow citizens. It began in 2011 when members of the Council on Aging Board toured senior centers in the greater Springfield area. At that time, we met John Caitlin, who had served as a consultant regarding the building or renovating of senior community centers in many of our neighboring towns. While we were in the process of making arrangements for our select board to meet with Mr. Caitlin, our executive director Karen Michelman suddenly passed away. Out of respect for Karen, the Council on Aging Board voted unanimously to place this issue on a back burner until we installed a new director. Fortunately, in 2013, the town hired the amazing Emily Perkins as our new executive director. The Council on Aging Board soon authorized the implementation of a task force to pick up the ball on this issue. This group would be headed by an experienced builder, Phil Hallahan. The result of his dedicated leadership, along with the hard work of the task force, is what you have seen this evening. I respectfully ask the voters to approve Article 30 so that we might hire a professional to put our facts, figures, and ideas together. Do we renovate or build new? Where is the best location? Whatever we do will be around for a long time. Let's do it right. Please help the seniors of Longmeadow make the best decisions. Please vote yes on Article 30. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Russell.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. I am Jim Russell, 108 Bel Air Drive. I am speaking in favor of Article 30, requesting $35,000 to complete the study of options to provide truly suitable space and facilities for the Long Meadow Council on Aging Center. This request was recommended by the Finance Committee. I would like to share with you some following facts and figures. There are approximately 15,922 residents living in Long Meadow today. 18 years or younger, 3,207. 19 through 44, 4,345 residents. 45 through 59, 3,830. And finally, the seniors like myself, 60-plus years, 4,540 people. If you add the over 60 and ages 45 to 59, that represents 8,370 residents. This is 52.7% of the total population. These numbers are starting as they are more than 50% of our town residents, tells a story that most people in this room probably would have never guessed of what they were. Brand new senior centers have been built in Holyoke, Agawam, Hamden, Northampton. East Long Meadow completed a major renovation to its senior center. New senior centers are currently under construction in Chicopee, Springfield. Westfield will be breaking ground in early September for a 20,000 square foot building at a cost of $6.3 million. Long Meadow has done a fantastic job for the use of our town by way of the high school and Long Meadow Parks and Recreation. Now it is time to provide for our seniors going forward. Our current Greenwood Park Center is a former school and is 60 years old. I repeat, 60 years old. It is a very, very tired building. As a senior, I respectfully request your favorable vote tonight on Article 30. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Further discussion on the motion under Article 30, Mr. Starr.
Mr. Moderator, I'm glad we were able to move this to an earlier vote. Everybody saw what happened after the last vote. Those people who had an individual issue for being here left. There's still a lot of a very important business to be transacted after this. And even though I'm entering into this aging group that is looking for this money, which I fully support, I would encourage those of you who are still here and can stay up a little later to stay in the meeting. Don't have a mass exit after this, and help us get through the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Dr. Metz.
While I am in this same group and firmly encourage the use of some of the town's funds to support it, I don't like writing a blank check. And I was wondering if one of the supporters would let us know what the $35,000 is going to get us.
Do we have an answer? Mr. Wojcik, please. There is a question on the floor by a previous speaker as to what the $30,000 will go for. The question is, whether you can answer, is how are they going to spend the $30,000?
The source of the funding is expected to be free cash.
What are you going to get for it, though?
Okay. What we will be doing is putting together a study that, first of all, takes advantage of many more but similar demographics. We will be looking at the results of the work done last May that says these are, excuse me, these are the services provided in town. This is the reception we have for their services. And then from looking at and talking with people in town, we'll be asking them not only what services they want to have, but they will actually use. There's an actual science that's developed that will allow us to pursue these kinds of interviews. From all of this information, and from John Catlin's or a person like John, information about senior center design will come up with a basis, not a design, but a basis for a design that takes advantage of what the town's seniors have and want and will likely want into the future. As you saw from the data, the growth rate on the number of seniors in the town is significant, and that's expected to grow. So you'll actually get a book on the subject, if I can put it that way. If you'd like to participate in the development of the study, please see me, because there may be a role for you that makes sense for you as well as for the study author, whoever that's going to be.
Thank you, Mr. Wojcik. Further discussion on the motion under Article 30, Mrs. Stoller.
Eleanor Stoller, Meadow Road. I have lived in Long Meadow for 50 years, and we've taken care of the children in town, and now it's the time for seniors. So I ask you to please vote yes for a study for a suitable senior center. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Marilyn Hurst, 212 Prinwood Road. How will the results of this study serve the citizens of Long Meadow? For our seniors, it will determine the best options for providing truly suitable space and facilities for the Long Meadow Council on Aging Center. For our citizens approaching retirement in the next few years, it will give them the opportunity to include their suggestions during the study decision process. For our younger voters, it will give peace of mind that their parents will have a suitable facility to enjoy their later years while still living near their families. Please support this first step in our journey for Long Meadow seniors by voting yes on Article 30.
Thank you very much. Further discussion on the motion. Yes, sir.
John Carey, 28 Lawrence Drive, where I've been for the last 41 years. I think that Long Meadow is very fortunate to have such an adult center as we have. It has strong leadership and staff, over 200 volunteers, and good support from the community. And what emerges from all of this is an amazing number of programs. The last time I counted, there were 79 programs that were sponsored by the Adult Center. I like to think of the Adult Center as it is now as a rose among thorns. The rose being all the functions that the health center, there goes my medical background, the Adult Center provides, but the environment that it provides it in is wholly inadequate. I think that has been already mentioned, but I will mention it again and tell you an experience I had recently at the Adult Center. We had a meeting there, and in the room where the meeting was being held, there also was the pool table, the ping pong table, and the exercise equipment. To say that this is woefully inadequate is probably an understatement. I think Long Meadow is to be commended on the adult center that has been established, but the building obviously is inadequate. I'm getting back to an analogy again, is having this center in this building is like fitting a square peg in a round hole. Has been alluded to earlier, and I will repeat it, that a community is often judged on how it takes care of its older people. And I think Long Meadow does a good job of that, except in this one respect, where the building where many of these, maybe most of the functions happen for people is so inadequate. So I hope that you will join me in voting yes for this Article 30. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Mary Beth Bergeron, 497 Inverness Lane. I sit on the board of directors for the Council on Aging, having joined that board specifically because I work with a wonderful group of people in my church who take care of weekend meals for the frail people in our town who are generally receiving Meals on Wheels, but Meals on Wheels does not have the funding or the resources to bring meals to people on the weekends, and the group of volunteers I work with does do that. So far in the presentation, it sounds as though the senior center is just this wonderful place for us seniors to go and enjoy ourselves and take French classes and play pool and do all of those other fun things that all of you people who aren't retired would love to be doing all day. But in fact, the senior center services much more than that. They do take care of the frail people in town. At the senior center is the food bank. Many of you have probably donated food to the food bank. It is an important thing for our town. Not everyone has enough food that lives here. Under the umbrella of the senior center, the Meals on Wheels program is provided to those people who are unable to get out of their home and probably unable to make a meal for themselves that is nutritious. It is an important program for our town and the citizens of our town who have paid taxes for years. Under also the umbrella, the veteran services are taken care of. We have a veteran agent. He works out of the senior center here in town, and he provides services to those men and women who have served our country who are seeking assistance. So yes, it is true that we would like to build a new senior center in this town. We need to have a study to make sure that we are on the right road, that we are headed in the right direction. And that's what this particular warrant is about, is we would like you to fund that study. We're not asking you to fund the senior center. We're not asking for that yet, but we are asking you for the ability to hire a professional company to come in and assist us in determining whether or not a new center is needed and where the most likely place for that to be built. I also want to mention that there's kind of three phases to being a senior center. There's people like myself who work full-time, in fact over full-time, who are unable to take advantage of all the fun things at the senior center because the senior center isn't open a lot of hours. It is not open till 5 or 6 o'clock at night, and it's not open on the weekends. I'd love to see that happen. Then you have the seniors who are retired and who do have some extra time or time where they'd like to go socialize with other people in town, and the senior center is a wonderful place for that. They go to learn French, they go to learn Italian, they have quilting classes, they have all these wonderful participating things that they can participate in. And then you have the frail elders. You too will be a frail elder someday if you're lucky. So please vote for this warrant. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we ready to vote? Mr. Santinello. Mr. Santinello, you have the floor.
I don't know if it's no to me or no to you or whatever it is, but I'll take it. I'm going to give you my opinion on this. I'm going to vote against this article, and I'm going to tell you why. There's a process that things have to go through. Okay, I said I'm going to vote against this article, and I'm going to tell you why. There's a process in which things have to go through. There was a task force set up by the Council on Aging that acted as a task force and put this together. In 8 years on the Select Board, the Council on Aging building has not come up as a priority in terms of replacing or repairing. We have a new Council on Aging director, and I agree with the speaker, we have a fantastic Council on Aging director who's been in the job for 1 year, roughly. And I would think it would be up to that Council on Aging director to come to the town manager and bring before the board the needs of the facility. And we haven't had that. And you heard two of my colleagues speak about the previous article about the budget amendment that talked about all the money and the bills that we're going to have in the fall. And I understand 35,000 is 35,000. The worst words in local government are the words, "it's only." It's the issue of it's not a priority, hasn't been a priority to look at in terms of rehabilitating. We've pumped thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars between roof, electrical upgrade. You have over $100,000 worth of warrant articles tonight to improve the facility. And if you're going to vote for the study, then I would hope you vote against those articles, because you can't have it both ways. We've upgraded the electrical. You look at what $60,000 did in an over 60 meeting room. A lot of that was private funded, but it was over $60,000 in that room is unrecognizable compared to what it was. And the Council on Aging Director has not come before the Select Board, nor you, the town residents, to tell you about the types of programs that it is woefully inadequate to perform. You haven't heard that once in the last year about the woeful inadequacies at the center. And new or renovated isn't the issue. The issue is the process in which we have to go through. And that's why I'm going to vote against this, because what we're doing is we're approving a solution looking for a problem. And that's what this is. This isn't looking to renovate, it's looking to provide a new facility, and I've already heard the plans about where we're going to put it and so forth. So when you have a study like this, it is a solution looking for the problem, and if you're going to vote for this, then I ask you to vote against the other articles in terms of fixing up the center. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Santinello. Further discussion on the motion under Article 30. Yes, sir.
I'd like to speak. May I?
Mr. Feinstein.
Okay. I wasn't going to speak until I heard dissent. I sensed that we were going to get a successful vote. In all due respect, with Mr. Santinello's remarks, this is an ongoing process, that, as was mentioned by a previous speaker, that we've been doing a study for this. We sustained a difficult period when Karen Michelman passed. You asked that the current director, who was burdened with many other things that kept the program going, the center is more than the director, and I respect her. But this is a work that we've been doing, and I urge that you support this motion, because all of us hopefully will be, well, I'm already there, but all of us are going to be seniors, and hopefully you'll want a center that is worthy of Long Meadow. That program that we have, and I've been on the board for I don't know how long, too many years maybe, but I keep coming back because I want the best senior center that we could possibly get. And all we're asking is a study. That study for $35,000 is not just going to help the senior center, it's going to help the town. I was involved 10 years ago, and I'm going to finish very quickly now. I was involved 10 years ago in a study, long-range planning, and now we have an opportunity to get those plans in effect. They're gathering dust right now. This study will help us. We'll know where we are in the town in terms of where a senior center could fit into it. It will help you in all respects, in many respects, if not all. And I urge that you vote for this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Feinstein. Further discussion on the motion under Article 30. Ms. Angelides.
I urge you to vote for this article also. I believe that this study is not just on whether there's going to be a new center or renovation, but also about the programs, and that's where we really need to start. What are the needs of the seniors in town? And I believe that the new director has brought in new programs showing active seniors. There's a lot of discussion. We had a large group that got together to see what was missing in town, and in regards to services for the senior, this is going to answer those questions. And I believe as we go and we're investing more and more into this building, we need to know what we're looking for. And I think this is the first step in the process, and I do urge you to vote for it.
Thank you, Ms. Angelides. Further discussion on the motion under Article 30. We ready to vote? Yes. All right. On the motion under Article 30 requires a majority vote, ladies and gentlemen. All those in favor of the motion as read under Article 30, would you signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? Motion passes, majority affirmative vote. Move along to consideration of the motion under Article 8.
Yeah.
Mr. Moderator.
Gold.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $45,000 to a salary settlement account to fund approved collective bargaining and wage settlements.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 8. Mr. Gold.
The town currently has one collective bargaining unit that is unsettled. This article will provide funds for approved wage and collective bargaining agreements. Funds for the salary settlement account can be released to the individual budgetary line items by the finance director only after receipt of finalized collective bargaining and wage settlement documents. Note that prior appropriations, similar nature, covered wages through fiscal year 2014. This appropriation would cover wages for fiscal year 2015 once agreements are fulfilled.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. Further discussion on the motion under Article 8? Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 8, would you signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? The motion passes. Unanimous affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 9. Mr. Gold.
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the following amounts for capital projects, and that any remaining amounts from the capital projects be returned to the Capital Stabilization Fund. From raise and appropriate fiscal year 2015 for project development, $25,000, project reserve, $10,000, for repairs to the main boiler, Williams Middle School, $100,000, Council on Aging bathroom exhaust, $12,000, fire truck replacement reserve, $75,000, DPW grounds, one-ton dump truck with plow and liftgate, $79,450, DPW highway SUV, $27,850, DPW maintenance pickup with plow, $41,360, DPW engineering sedan, $18,900, pavement preservation, $375,000, sidewalk reconstruction, $275,000, and guardrails, $30,000, for a subtotal of $1,069,560. And from available funds in the Treasury for the Council on Aging kitchen rent rehabilitation, $50,000. And from multi-fund sources, a DPW one-ton pickup truck with plow to have $37,695 from raise and appropriate in 2015. From the Water and Retained Earnings Fund, $18,848, and from Sewer Retained Earnings Fund, $18,848. And for a water sewer four-wheel drive pickup truck, $12,849 from the Water Retained Earnings Fund and $12,849 from a Sewer Retained Earnings Fund. And for the Emerson Road Pump Station Upgrade Phase 3, $340,000 from the Sewer Retained Earnings Fund.
Is there a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 9. Mr. Gold.
Annually, the town appropriates funds for capital expenditures. This utilizes the general fund's 2% capital allocation, which this year is $1,110,000, along with the utilization of some reserves. Additional capital expenditures are being financed through bond issues.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. Further discussion on the motion under Article 9. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? The motion passes by declaration, 2/3 vote. Okay. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 10, Mr. Gold.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to authorize the treasurer to borrow the sum of $940,000 for the purposes of drain improvements on Frank Smith Road, Avondale Road, Dwight Road, and Berwick Road, and related bond costs.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 10, Mr. Gold.
Yes, there are 4 drainage improvement projects included in this funding request. The Frank Smith Road system was installed in 1958 and is constructed of 30-inch and 36-inch reinforced concrete pipe. The pipe will have localized repairs, will have localized repairs and be slip-lined to minimize disturbance in the area. Drainage improvements to correct ponding issues and pavement deterioration on Dwight Road need to be completed prior to the paving of the road. The drainage outfall on Berwick Road has collapsed and needs to be replaced. These projects are all consistent with the 2011 tie and bond drainage study. There's also a failed culvert on Avondale Road that will be slip-lined to prevent continued formation of sinkholes that threaten the roadway and other utilities.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. Further discussion on the motion under Article 10. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 10 would signify so by raising your green cards. All those opposed? The motion passes 2/3 by declaration. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 11, Mr. Gold.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to authorize the treasurer to borrow the sum of $150,000 for the purpose of design services for the North Interceptor sewer and related bond costs to be paid in the first instance from sewer receipts.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 11, Mr. Gold.
Yes, this funding is necessary to provide for design services for the replacement of the North Interceptor. The North Interceptor was constructed in 1955 with 8 and 10-inch clay tile pipes. The interceptor line is inaccessible in many areas as it runs through the wooded areas along the slopes to the east of Interstate 91, conveying sewage from the north end of town to the Emerson Road pumping station. Replacement of this line is consistent with the 2008 tie and bond sewer system evaluation report, and I might add parenthetically, this is not a system that we'd like to see fail.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. Further discussion on the motion under Article 11. Yes, sir.
Stu Creelman, 104 Green Meadow Drive in Long Meadow. Just a question, looking back to the graphs that we saw of the town's overall debt structure and seeing how the debt levels are decreasing over the next few years, all of a sudden I see a lot of debt being added. How does this fit into that picture?
Mr. Gold?
This article is funded out of sewer receipts, so this doesn't impact the general government bonding limitation. Obviously, it still gets paid for, but it gets paid for out of the sewer bills. In terms of the more general question, there is a plan for long-term bonding of the town, and it will, in fact, long-term decrease. Primarily, that decrease you saw in those big step declines you saw are this building. The borrowing for this building was particularly taken with some step reductions after certain periods of time. So I think if you took this building out of that bond payment schedule that you saw, everything else would be sitting way down at the bottom of that chart. So it essentially is not that big a change from what you saw.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 11. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 11 as read, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? Motion passes, unanimous affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 12. Mr. Gold.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to authorize the treasurer to borrow the sum of $316,033 for the purpose of replacing sewer lines on Colton Place and related bond costs to be paid in the first instance from sewer receipts.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion under the motion under Article 12. Mr. Gold.
Now, the main sewer line on Colton Place is clay tile pipe installed in 1915. The pipe is blocked intermittently and has resulted in sewer backups into homes on Colton Place. Replacement of this line is consistent with the 2008 tie and bond sewer systems evaluation report.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 12. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a two-thirds vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? The motion passes, unanimous affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 13, Mr. Gold.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to authorize the treasurer to borrow the sum of $440,000 for the purpose of replacing water mains on Edgewood Avenue and Glenwood Circle and related bond costs to be paid in the first instance from water receipts.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 13. Mr. Gold.
Yeah, the water mains on Edgewood Avenue and Glenwood Circle are 6-inch cast iron water mains installed in 1923. The water main ruptured 3 times in 2011. I don't think I have to say any more after that.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 13, Mr. Landon.
In reference to the gentleman's question on debt for the town, the Finance Committee has drafted a new policy on debt management, and it is being discussed and vetted by the Select Board in an upcoming meeting. The concern is the length of the maturity of the debt of the town, and the policies we're working in coordination with the CFO. It's a serious matter as we go forward because our infrastructure needs are so massive. You could look at them as unfunded liabilities in a number of serious, major areas: water, sewer, trees, sidewalks, pavement, etc. So we are relatively unleveraged in the scheme of things, and to hold our bond rating, we're going to have to continue to show the rating agencies that we know how to finance things and or pay them out of cash, and cash is becoming a more rare commodity, as we've heard tonight. So I just wanted to let the gentleman know that there's serious effort being to look at debt management and capital management. That's another policy we've drafted at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Landon. Further discussion on the motion under Article 13. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a two-thirds vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 13 as read, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? The motion passes, unanimous affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 14, Mr. Gold.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate a sum of money from the state for highway improvements under the authority of Mass General Law, Chapter 90, or any other applicable laws, and to authorize the Select Board, if necessary, to apply for, accept, and borrow in anticipation of state aid for such projects and expend.
I hear a second. Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 14. Mr. Gold.
Yes, the state annually allocates the town a sum of money to be spent on town roads. This is called Chapter 90 money. This amount must be appropriated by town meeting. The town spends the money first and is reimbursed by the state upon completion of the project. The amount will not be known until the state budget is finalized and the money is released by the governor, but we do have road repair needs that need to be done.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. Further discussion on the motion under Article 14. Seeing none, move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a two-thirds vote. All those in favor of the motion as read signify so by raising your green cards. All those opposed? By unanimous affirmative vote, the motion passes. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 15.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Santinello.
Mr. Moderator, can we request that we consent to the dispensing with the reading of Article 15?
Are you moving Article 15, Mr. Starr?
No, dispense with the reading of Article 15. And as it's written in the warrant. Is that a unanimous
Is that what
consent?
you're, yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem with that. Is there any objection to dispensing with the reading of the article under Article 15?
Thank you.
Thank you. You make the motion. Right, yes, make the motion and dispense with the reading of the motion.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the general bylaws of the town by inserting the following Article 5, Section 900, registration and maintenance of foreclosed properties, and request a waiving of the reading of the article.
All right. Is there any objection to waiving the reading of Article 15? Seeing none, do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 15. Mr. Crane.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'll be brief. I know me and the PowerPoint clicker are time killer. I just want to go through this briefly. No, just, you guys, it basically requires, if a bank forecloses on a property right now, they put a sign up on the window and you can't find anybody to maintain the property. This would require them to have a local point of contact as well as a local maintenance company that our building inspector can call and get them to cut the grass and fix windows and things like that. And it imposes penalties that we don't currently have, and if they don't pay them, it goes on the tax lien, so when the property transfers, we get the money back. A lot of towns are doing this in light of the foreclosure crisis. Enough said? All right.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 15? Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. This requires a majority vote, ladies and gentlemen. All those in favor of the motion under Article 15 as printed in your warrant, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? All those opposed? Motion passes, unanimous affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 16, Mr. Foster.
Thank you. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town to vote to establish a revolving fund for the schools department pursuant to the general law, Chapter 44, Section 53E 1/2. Said fund to receive commissions paid from the sale of vending machines located at various locations under the jurisdiction of the school department. Said funds to be deposited with the town treasurer and with payments from the fund to be expended by the school department up to $5,000 to support school-related activities.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 16, Mr. Foster.
Massachusetts general law requires revenues to be deposited in the general fund in most cases. In some cases, such as funds derived from school vending machines, revolving funds can be established annually by town meeting, allowing these funds, these revenues to be used by the schools as income sources. Adoption of this provision will allow the school department to keep and expend income derived from the school-based vending machines solely for school purposes without turning them over to the general revenue. As was the original intent of the vending agreement, the appropriations cannot exceed those funds received in the prior years, in the prior fiscal year.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Further discussion on the motion under Article 16. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just to let town meeting know, the purposes of this money, obviously we approve this similar warrant every single town meeting, annual town meeting. We'll be using it with costs associated with the literacy program going forward and or costs associated with auditing the athletic revolving account. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Yes, sir.
Just a quick clarification for Mr. Clark. You used this for the literary program. Was that the $500,000 program mentioned before?
Mr. Clark.
It's a portion of our budget. There was a new program added that was mentioned before, but obviously our literacy program encompasses much more than $500,000.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Further discussion on the motion under Article 16. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 16, would you please signify so by raising your green cards. All those opposed? The motion passes, majority affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 17. Mr. Foster.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $8,000 from the FY 2015 Community Preservation Local Surcharge and Trust Fund for the administrative costs of the Community Preservation Committee.
The motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 17. Mr. Foster.
These funds are for any expense incurred by the Community Preservation Committee. In FY 12, the committee spent approximately $2,500. Any funds not used during the year are returned to the Community Preservation undersigned fund balance account.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Further discussion on the motion under Article 17. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 17 as read, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? The motion passes, unanimous affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 18, Mr. Foster.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to fund the Community Preservation Project to renovate Blinn tennis courts and lighting in the amount of $375,000 to be funded by $50,000 from the open space fund balance and $325,000 from the undesignated fund balance in the condition of the appropriation that the energy efficient lighting be installed.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 8, Mr. Foster.
Yes. The tennis courts were first installed over 60 years ago. They are used by the high school and the community at large. The lighting has been a long-term problem. The courts have been overlaid, cracked, refilled, and paved, but are in need of replacement. The total cost of the project to replace the courts, fencing, and lighting is estimated to be $675,000, of which $300,000 has been previously allocated excuse me, by the town and Community Preservation Committee, Commission, one of those. The article will enable the town to renovate the tennis courts this year.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Further discussion on the motion under Article 18, Mr. Russell.
Mr. Moderator, I am chairman of the Park and Recreation Department. Last year, it became necessary for me to immediately close one of the tennis courts because of a dangerous situation. Somebody could have gotten seriously hurt. The courts are in dire straits. If this motion does not pass, which was approved unanimously by CPC as well as the Finance Committee, then it is very likely that during the summer of 2014, we may have to change or close more courts. In Long Meadow at the high school, we have a phenomenal tennis team. We would love to host a state tournament on our high school courts. However, the deplorable conditions of those courts prevent us from doing this. I urge you to support this motion and let us finally get new tennis courts with proper lighting for all people to be able to play tennis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Further discussion on the motion under Article 18, Mr. Clark.
I'm going to speak in support of this motion. Our students at the high school utilize this court not only in gym class, but for their tennis team, as well as members of the community who use it frequently throughout the spring and summer months. I encourage you to support it as well.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Further discussion on the motion under Article 18. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 18 as read, would you please signify so by raising your green cards. All those opposed? The motion passes, majority affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 19. Mr. Santinello.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to fund a community preservation project to resurface the track at Long Meadow High School in an amount of $87,500 funded from the Community Preservation Open Space Balance.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 19. Mr. Santinello.
The rubberized track surface at Long Meadow High School was installed in 1999, has been repaired by contractors or the DPW for the last 3 years, and needs to be replaced. There are large areas of the surface that are deteriorated, and the track is used for both scholastic use and by members of the community for walking and jogging.
Thank you, Mr. Santinello. Further discussion on the motion under Article 19. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The track at Long Meadow High School was the #1 priority for the school committee this year with regard to capital projects and community preservation funded projects. In the past, we have been approached by the director of the DPW, although he's not here tonight, asking that the track be closed for safety hazards. We feel that this is a vitally important project for not only the committee, but the community, for our students who use it, and as it should be noted, we have not been able to hold home meets in Long Meadow, not only throughout the duration of the high school building project, but this year as well. I believe they're being held in East Long Meadow. So I would again encourage you to approve this project. It is critically important to what we do at Long Meadow High School. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Further discussion on the motion under Article 19. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 19 as read, would you please signify so by raising your green cards. All those opposed? The motion passes a majority affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 20, Mr. Santinello.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to fund a community preservation project to renovate and improve the Wolf Swamp Fields in an amount of $35,000 to be funded from the Open Space Fund balance.
Here a second?
Second.
Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion under the motion under Article 20, Mr. Santinello.
The Park and Recreation Department has requested that 2 softball fields closest to Wolf Swamp Road be removed and the area seeded so that more multi-purpose playing fields can be utilized for soccer, lacrosse, and field hockey. This will make more fields available for these sports in which participation has been increasing.
Thank you, Mr. Santinello. Further discussion on the motion under Article 20, Mr. Russell.
Mr. Moderator, the number of children that play sports in Long Meadow continues to grow and grow and grow. We need to discontinue 2 men's softball fields and to change them in to accommodate the hundreds of children that want to play additional sports. I ask for your support and to vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 20. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Mary Pat O'Connor, 138 Maple Road, and I'm also the president of the Long Meadow Soccer Association, and I'm here to support this article so that we can have more field space and reduce overcrowding. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 20. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 20 as read, would you please signify so by raising your green cards. All those opposed? The motion passes majority affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 21, Mr. Santinello.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to fund a community preservation project to make improvements in the community house in the amount of $54,000 to be funded from the undesignated fund balance.
We hear a second. Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 21, Mr. Santinello.
The community house was constructed in 1921. It first served as a hall and meeting house for First Church and was later acquired by the town. It has had several interior and exterior upgrades in the last 5 years to preserve the building in its original appearance. This project will fund refinishing of the stage and balcony hardwood floors and stairs, repair and painting of the proscenium stage opening and walls, and replacement of the stage curtain and the fire retardant curtain.
Thank you, Mr. Santinello. Further discussion on the motion under Article 21, Mr. Russell.
Mr. Moderator, when I moved into Long Meadow 49 years ago, The community house back then was the focal point of Long Meadow Street. 49 years later, it still is. I can remember my late wife and I attending the policeman's ball in the community house. I remember not starving, but participating in a mystery with my late wife in the community house. It has served the town well. I would be grateful if everybody would favorably vote on this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Further discussion on the motion under Article 21, Mr. Landon.
Peter Landon, Finance Committee. We, in the Finance Committee, feel that the town is woefully underfunded the whole capital project process in a number of major areas. And Ned Steiger, Chairman, has written in a report in your page 5 in your handout the percentages that, in our opinion, should be addressed and what we've done in recent periods. And I think, thank God for the Community Preservation Act coming along to supplement the woeful underfunding of capital, as Mr. Steiger has outlined on page 5 in your original booklet that was handed out. I don't know what the handout tonight contained it, as far as the message.
Thank you, Mr. Landon. Further discussion on the motion under Article 21. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 21 as read, would you please signify so by raising your green cards. All those opposed? The motion passes, unanimous affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 22, Mr. Santinello.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to fund the Community Preservation Project to restore and preserve the ancient burial markers in Long Meadow Cemetery in an amount of $30,080, funded in the amount from the Community Preservation Historical Fund balance, $20,573, and the balance $9,507 from the undesignated fund balance.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion on Article 22. Mr. Santinello.
This is phase 2 of a project to restore and preserve the ancient burial markers in Long Meadow Cemetery. Last year, the Community Preservation Commission supported the first grant request, which provided for restoration at the markers in the most serious need of restoration, and provided for professional expert evaluation of the markers and a roadmap to prioritize the restoration and preservation that will be needed to the future, in the future to protect the significant and invaluable historic resources for future generations.
Thank you, Mr. Santinello. Further discussion on the motion under Article 22. Thank you. I was wondering where those lights were. Mr. Wojcik, I can see you now.
Roger Wojcik. The question I have is whether or not the town of Long Meadow owns the Long Meadow Cemetery. Is that town of Long Meadow property?
Mr. Crane, please.
It is not a town of Long Meadow property that we maintain with town resources. It's a separate, I believe, 501c3 that maintains and cares for the cemetery.
So we're taking town of Long Meadow monies to fund this non-town.
This is Community Preservation Act money, which you can use on non-public projects.
You can?
You can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 22. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion as read under Article 22, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? The motion passes, majority affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 23. Mr. Santinello.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to fund the Community Preservation Project to install docks and a security system on town-owned land on the Connecticut River to facilitate boat access in the amount of $11,700 to be funded from the Open Space Fund. It is a condition of this appropriation that all necessary permits be obtained before acquiring any equipment with such permits paid for with the appropriate amount not to exceed $2,500.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 23. Mr. Santinello.
This project will enhance a recreation and boat launch area on the riverfront conservation land owned by the town adjacent to the Pioneer Valley Yacht Club. A floating dock will be installed in the river to allow easy and safe launching of small boats such as kayaks, canoes, rowboats, and rowing shells.
Thank you, Mr. Santinello. Further discussion on the motion under Article 23. Mr. Law.
The Finance Committee did not recommend this article. The exposure that it potentially gives to the town in liability is significant. And it is my understanding that this article has not been discussed in any way, shape, or form with the Park Department or Park Committee, who will ultimately have to supervise this situation. So it is our recommendation that this not be approved.
Thank you, Mr. Law. Further discussion on the motion under Article 23. Yes, ma'am.
Beatrice Fabian, 45 Leetwood Drive. The park that they're considering using is very underutilized park. Because it isn't being utilized by the regular, upstanding community members, it's becoming a park with a lot of drug dealing going on down there. I feel very strongly that if we were to make it a park where people could actually launch little boats, have their families go down there and have picnics, perhaps it would make the Connecticut River access more accessible to everyone. And I see that it is, compared to all the other amounts of money that we've allocated tonight, $11,700 is minuscule compared to all these other projects. This park could be turned into a beautiful asset for our community. For the Finance Committee to not recommend that they approve something like this, but yet spend hundreds of thousands of dollars reseeding baseball fields seems a little narrow-minded to me.
Thank you. Mr. Hoff.
Bill Hoff, 24 Pinewood Hills. I submitted this project to the Community Preservation Committee, where I was chair for a number of years earlier when it was submitted by someone else. I disagree with the argument that the liability, this town has many liabilities. We let our students play on the athletic fields. We have soccer tournaments. We have lacrosse games. Those all open us up to liabilities. This is no different than any of those. This is on Conservation Commission land. This has nothing to do with the Parks and Rec land. I will say that the Connecticut River is a resource that we've had in Long Meadow for many years that has been very underutilized, like the previous person said. Over the years, I've been involved in a lot of committees, including the Long Range Planning Committee, that has talked about how we have to better utilize our access to the river that was basically been ignored for many years. So I encourage you, this is a small step to allow us to use that river a little more, so I'd encourage you to support this article. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 23? Yes, sir.
Good evening. Stephen Weiss, 18 Pioneer Drive. I am the current chair of the Community Preservation Committee. I also want to say we did vet this with both DPW, who said that there would not be any significant increase in maintenance expenses. They're already maintaining that area. This was also supported by the Conservation Commission, and this is on Conservation Commission land. We took a look at all of the projects and we thought this one was worthy. It's again the smallest project that came to us. We did approve it. That land is underutilized, and we support the project.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 23? Yes, sir.
My name is Tom Snellum, 63 Porter Lake Drive. I'm quite familiar with the property, and I'm not exactly sure how we put a dock and boat ramp there for only $12,000, and if we put a dock there, do we not have to take it in during the winter and flood seasons? It seems like a very small amount of money, and it wouldn't actually work.
Mr. Hoff, please.
These are these will be four 4x8 docks, floating docks. They will not actually be secured into the river. They'll be secured onto the river bank. They weigh less than 150 pounds each. They can be easily picked up and moved out of the river during the winter and put up on the side.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 23. Yes, sir.
Hi. Ooh, sorry. Jay Lieb from 200 Tanglewood Drive. My question, I think the dock would be great, but it's going to be unsupervised. And the gentleman over there that mentioned the potential liability to the community could be rather significant. The comparison to kids playing on softball fields and soccer fields, that's supervised, guys, and we're going to have this. But these docks would be totally unsupervised, if I'm hearing it correctly. And therefore, if someone was to get hurt or an accident to happen, I do believe the town would be liable.
Thank you, sir. Further discussion on the motion under Article 23. Ms. Fabian.
In all the Connecticut shoreline, there are town docks and town launching ramps that are unsupervised all along Long Island Sound. It doesn't seem to be a big issue with most of the communities that I know of that already have launching and docks. So the liability issue, if we have appropriate rules, people don't follow those rules, that should be on them.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 23. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm Steve Kennedy of 11 Western Drive, and my only problem with this article is that it refers to riverfront conservation land. And I've always thought of that as land under conservation left in its natural state. And you're talking here about developing land, which is by definition conservation land. I simply don't think it's right to move conservation land into a recreation land.
Thank you, sir. Further discussion on the motion under Article 23. You've spoken twice, ma'am.
Is that the limit?
Make your...
May I address his comment?
Please answer.
If it
Please
is
go ahead.
conservation land, the gentleman ought to know that the land has been developed. There is a parking area, there is fencing, and
Okay.
it isn't being left in its natural state whatsoever.
Thank you. Further discussion under the motion under Article 23. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Patty Tarnaskis, 5 Homestead Boulevard. It's really difficult to find a place in town to get to the river, and it would just be nice if we could have a path cleared, and just a floating dock would be great for those of us that would like to use the area for kayaking or canoeing, as opposed to having to drive to Springfield or into Enfield. So give it some thought.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 23. Seeing none, move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion as read under Article 23, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? The motion passes, majority affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 24, Mr. Santinello.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to fund the Community Preservation Project to implement preservation of town records in an amount of $20,000 to be funded from the Historic Preservation Fund balance. This appropriation is conditioned on the following. 1, that the final report of 2013 funds be submitted to and accepted by the Community Preservation Committee. 2, that the town clerk receive a plan for preservation of records currently under the control of the town clerk. And 3, that a decision is made where the documents will be stored before purchases are made.
Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 24, Mr. Santinello.
The town clerk is required by Commonwealth regulations to retain certain types of town records forever. These records are currently stored in 2 locations in Town Hall. With the prior CPC grant, the town commissioned a review of the records and the needs assessment. The town also commissioned a report on how to best prioritize the preservation and storage of the records. The grant will be used to commence their actual restoration and storage, which is expected to take several years.
Thank you, Mr. Santinello. Further discussion on the motion under Article 24. Seeing none. Mr. Foster? Oh, did you wish to speak? Oh, all right. This requires a majority vote under Article 24, ladies and gentlemen. All those in favor of the motion under Article 24, would you signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? The motion passes, majority affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 25, Mr. Foster.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to fund the community preservation project for the restoration and preservation of the Storrs House in the amount of $37,207, funded from the community preservation undesignated fund balance. The work will be for converting the cellars of the Storrs House to enhance the storage, cataloging, and preservation of records and artifacts.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 25, Mr. Foster.
The Storrs House is the oldest public building in Longmeadow. It serves as a museum and headquarters for the Longmeadow Historic Society. A prior CPC grant was used to replace and insulate the roof, but the cellar of the house has no climate control. The project would address water problems and provide a fully insulated and climate-controlled space with upgraded storage and workspace, which will enable the Historic Society better preserve its artifacts and make them available for exhibiting.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Further discussion on the motion under Article 25. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? Motion passes, unanimous affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 26, Mr. Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to fund the community preservation project to install a walking trail and exercise station at Greenwood Park in the amount of $51,970 to be funded from the Open Space Fund.
Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 26.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Longmeadow senior population is in need of a safe environment for outdoor activities. A paved walking trail and associated exercise equipment on a surface free from cracks and obstructions will fulfill these needs. While the area will be designed for seniors, it will be a resource for the entire community.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Further discussion on the motion under Article 26. Seeing none, yes, ma'am.
Cynthia Summer, 57 Farmington Avenue. Will this be an accessible trail that people with wheelchairs and walkers could also use?
Yeah.
Mr. Foster.
Yes, it will be, as reported by several of the staff.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 26, Mr. Russell.
Mr. Moderator, more and more people are coming to the senior center. Activities are going on day and night. I took my wife for the first time and had lunch at the senior center for $3 today. Delicious chicken dinner. We need that. The senior center is growing. People are depending upon it. It will be a wonderful addition to the town of Longmeadow, not only the seniors, but for people in their 50s. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion, Mr. Foster.
Yeah, one more comment made to the recommendations on the asphalt path. I believe it'll be 5 foot wide and it'll be in full ADA compliance.
All right, thank you, Mr. Foster. Further discussion on the motion under Article 26. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 26, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? Motion passes, majority affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 27, Mr. Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to fund the community preservation project to install a standby generator at the Genesis House in the amount of $55,940 to be funded from the Community Preservation Housing Fund.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 27, Mr. Foster.
Genesis House, Inc. is a Longmeadow-based nonprofit 109-unit affordable housing facility built under HUD 202 program, which serves the needs of Longmeadow income and age-eligible senior citizens. This generator would protect the facility in the event of a power outage. It is supported by the police and fire department.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Further discussion on the motion under Article 27? Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. Yes, sir, did you want to speak?
Not yet.
Oh, all right. All those in favor of the motion under Article 27, would you please signify so by raising your green cards. All those opposed? The motion passes, majority affirmative vote.
Mr. Moderator, may I be recognized?
Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Dan O'Malley, 315 Long Meadow Street, and a current member of the Long Meadow Building Demolition Committee. I would like to make a motion to remove and/or table Article 28 from consideration at today's town meeting, correct the inaccuracies in the article and the explanation of the article, and bring a corrected article forward to a future town meeting. Thank you.
You're 29.
Well, I don't know whether you can table something if it has not been moved. Now, that is not a motion to table is not a main motion. To take from the table is a main motion, but not a, you're asking to table a motion, and that is not a main motion. If you're asking to take no action on Article 28, that would be a main motion I would accept. Is that your motion? Would you put that in writing? Move that take no action on Article 28. As a main motion, ladies and gentlemen, we have a motion to take no action on Article 28. Do I hear a second? Motion has been moved and seconded. So, Mr. O'Malley.
Thank you. First, I applaud the Select Board members for their hard work and efforts to provide a workable foundation for the future of the Long Meadow Building Demolition Committee. Unfortunately, Article 28 as written is inaccurate. Subsection 1 reads that the committee shall consist of 5 members, 3 of which are at-large members appointed by the Select Board. Subsection 2 then proceeds to identify terms of service for 4 members appointed by the Select Board, not the 3 members noted in subsection 1. Additionally, and maybe most alarmingly, is the removal of the safeguard providing for a broad range of citizen participation in this committee beyond the Long Meadow Historical Commission. This safeguard was clearly included in the passage of the original bylaw in 2006 as an amended by an affirmative vote of the town meeting. Finally, the explanative notes to Article 28 may lead a reader to conclude that when the building demolition delay bylaw was adopted in 2006, the bylaw was not clear on the composition or manner of appointment of members of the Building Demolition Committee. In fact, the original bylaw in 2006, as amended by an affirmative vote of the town meeting, was very specific in the composition and manner of appointment of members
of the Long Meadow Building Demolition Committee. The approved 2006 bylaw reads, under the definitions section, Commission, Item 2, quote, the Long Meadow Building Demolition Committee shall consist of 6 members, 2 members of the Long Meadow Historical Commission, and 4 at-large members, not currently members of the Long Meadow Historical Commission, appointed by the Select Board. This information is clearly posted on the town's website. Because of these inaccuracies and the removal of the citizen participation safeguard mentioned earlier, I urge you to vote yes to remove this article for consideration. To take no action on this article. Thank you
All right.
for filling me.
Further discussion on the motion to take no action on Article 28. Mr. Weiss, I believe?
Yes.
Yes.
Again, Stephen Weiss, 18 Pioneer Drive. In addition to being the chair of the Community Preservation Committee, I'm also on the Historical Commission. I'm speaking against tabling this vote.
Not tabling the vote.
Or taking no action, excuse
Okay.
me. The bylaw as it was passed, there's nothing inaccurate in what's written here tonight. The bylaw as it was passed in 2006 has problems with it because there were no term limits for any of the members. There was a 6-member commission. What we encountered looking as members of the Historical Commission is that there were 6 members technically on the Demolition Delay Committee, which to my knowledge has never actually had until recently, until this week, had a meeting. One of them, because there are no term limits, when we looked at this, one of the members officially on the committee had moved out of town, and I think another one was dead. We've been lucky that we haven't had a need to have a Demolition Delay Committee actually conduct a meeting because when a property comes up that's subject to the Demolition Delay bylaw, there has to be a meeting within 30 days. Right now, the committee is essentially not functional. This bylaw is meant to this bylaw amendment is made to change that. There would still be 3 members appointed by the select board from the town at large. I'm not sure how that would create a committee that would be dominated by the Historical Commission. So I would recommend that we not. I'm speaking against, strongly against, taking no action tonight. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Crane.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just want to clarify the intent that was of the article and was brought forward. It was to, in fact, assign term limits to the committee because in the original bylaw that Mr. O'Malley referred to, there was not a term limit in there, so essentially it's a term for life. And when, for whatever reason, the 2006 action at town meeting was not incorporated into our general bylaws, so when we drafted the article, we thought that there was no guidance on the composition of the committee. It does turn out after further research, post-article publishing or post-warrant publishing, that the composition was addressed in the original bylaw. So I guess I would encourage town meeting to, rather than take no action, to amend or either accept the article proposed by the select board, which made it 5 members simply to avoid a situation of a tie in a vote, and proceed with adding the term limits so the demolition committee can be consistent with other boards and committees that do have terms. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator?
Mr. O'Malley.
There's obviously a lot of misinformation about this whole committee, how it was formed, why it was formed. I was here and very active in 2006, and I was the one who suggested the amendment at that time. It was well thought out. I understand that there were no term limits in place, but even to the last speaker's point, the committee has met in the past. It has effectively been functional. There's a lot of information in the community about the role of this committee. There's obviously a lot of misinformation at the select board level, apparently at the town manager level as well. So I firmly believe it is the responsible act to take no action tonight, to consider the rules that you want to put in place once again and bring it forward at a future town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I really have no idea what's going on with this. Clearly, there's some controversy within our executive ranks, and you guys need to figure it out and bring it back to this town meeting at another time. However, we can't vote on it the way it is because there is a mathematical error in it, as was pointed out. It says in item 1 that the select board appoints 3 people, and then it tells how you set the terms for 4 of them. That doesn't work except in government, where you can elect 3 people and then set the terms for 4 of them. We need to fix it. We can't do it tonight, so it's appropriate to not have an action on this tonight. Let's move on.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Further discussion on the motion? Yes, sir?
Move to call the question.
Is there any objection to taking a vote now? Is there any further discussion? We don't need to take an extra vote. We'll take a vote on the main motion to take no action. That requires a majority vote. All those in favor of taking no action on Article 28, would you signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? The motion passes, majority affirmative vote. We will take no action on Article 28.
Mr. Moderator, can we do that skip the reading thing on 29?
Mr. Foster. Article 29.
Okay. Article 29, thank you, Mr. I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaw of the town regarding this citing of marijuana or medical marijuana dispensaries. Second?
Is there a, all right, the motion is moved and seconded. I assume that as part of the motion you want to dispense with the reading of the motion.
That is
as printed in your warrant?
That is correct.
All right. Do I hear a second? All right, the motion has been moved and seconded. Further on Article 29, further discussion on the motion on Article 29. Mr. Foster.
Mr. Foster, didn't you also want to include the additional amendment that's posted in the warrant as part of the actual announcement?
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Gunn.
I move to amend the main motion by making the revisions listed in items 1 through 9 listed on page 26 of the warrant for this meeting as printed on page 26, and that the reading of this amendment be waived.
All right. So what we have is a main motion. We have the motion to amend. So we have to deal with the motion to amend first. Is there any objection to dispensing with the reading of the... Do we have a second, first of all, on the amendment? All right. We have a motion on the floor that's been, main motion that's been moved and seconded. We have a amendment on the floor which has been moved and seconded. There is a request granted to dispense with the reading of the amendment, and I will recognize Mr. Gunn on the amendment.
Okay, basically, I think everybody understands that the warrant amendment for Article 29 is basically.
Do I have that amendment in writing, please, or is it's in the warrant?
Page 26. Right. You can rip it right out of the warrant if you'd like. Basically, to address the amendment that's on the floor right now, it's because of timing issues when the planning board met and developed the model bylaw, which became this bylaw, which is Article 29 for consideration tonight. Town council reviewed it and came up with some key amendments, which basically I agree with, are adding in approval processes from the Board of Health, Police Department, and the Select Board. So they're pretty key organizations. If somebody was to want to cite a marijuana dispensary in Long Meadow, we would want all these boards on cooperating and working with the approval process. So that's basically what this amendment is about.
All right. Any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote on the amendment as printed in the warrant. An amendment requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the amendment as printed, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? The motion passes, the amendment passes, majority affirmative vote. Now we are on the main motion as amended. Dr. Metz?
I think this would be a tremendous mistake for Long Meadow to have a dispensary such as this in our town. There are no similar treatment facilities in Long Meadow. There are no drug treatment facilities, there's no long-term care treatment facilities, there are no substance treatment facilities, there's no psychiatric treatment facilities, there's nothing like that in Long Meadow. We have no experience with this kind of facility. There's not even a hospital, even a doc in a box in Long Meadow. This is purely an attempt to bring in a marijuana facility in Long Meadow. And that's pure and simple what this is about. Why would we want to do this? I fail to understand why we would want to start this up at this time, except that somebody has the idea this is a way to bring weed into Long Meadow. I'm sorry. Anybody who doesn't think that this high school has a drug problem, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Thank you. Further discussion on the main motion as amended, Mr. Gunn.
I'll just address that fact. It's unfortunate that when this was passed, which is the act of law for humanitarian medical use of marijuana, there is a provision in the state statute that says no town can actually deny the siting of a marijuana dispensary. So basically, if this bylaw is not adopted tonight by town meeting, pretty much anywhere in town could become a potential site for this facility. So the planning board took the preemptive measure here of selecting what we consider the professional zone, which is east of Dwight Road, as probably the safest possible potential, well, the safest place for a location like this. Highly unlikely this will happen. Already this year, there's already been licenses for the maximum amount of dispensaries in the state has already been issued. But down the road, you could see the laws actually being changed. You could see more liberalization, more recreational use of marijuana, possibly drugstores popping up. This bylaw will cover that and put it in one place in town. But you cannot deny an applicant from being in this town. You can't put it on your bylaws saying no medical marijuana dispensaries.
Thank you, Mr. Gunn. Further discussion on the amended motion, main motion as amended. Yes, ma'am.
Margaret Rocket, 67 Shady Side Drive. The maximum size of the facility is 2,500 square feet. That's kind of large. Is that required by statute?
Mr. Gunn.
It's volumes. It's a very thick statute. In fact, it's so convoluted. While this law was being enacted last summer, it was still going through the process of review by state boards and agencies and then final approval by the legislature. So, yeah, it has very minimal requirement. The requirements that are so severe, everything from security to location to how it's grown, and it has to be non-for-profit. It's most likely not going to ever happen in Long Meadow. It's going to be in a location that's obviously closer to the population that's going to utilize the service.
Thank you, Mr. Gunn. Mr. Elias.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Moderator and members of this group, my folks used to say to me when I was small, just because everybody else is going to jump off the bridge, you don't have to do it. That's what's happening here. We do not have to do this. I agree with the good doctor that there is a problem with the schools. We don't hear about it because we got effective enforcement and people in the schools that worry about the kids and try to help them. But we don't need to have anything brought into them. A few weeks ago, they had a special project where to get drugs out of the houses that weren't being used so the kids wouldn't pick them up and take them to school and play around with them. That was a good thing. Everybody was for that. Now, you want to have a medical marijuana in this town? No. A few years ago, they refused to put a bylaw in saying that you couldn't publicly smoke marijuana in this town. Well, if they put this in, they can always rent the green out for planting it, or have a smoke-in, like it up in Northampton and those other places. We don't want that. This is a Long Meadow. It's just inconceivable to me that there'd be any purpose in this at all. If the law said that they can have medical marijuana to be dispensed in a pharmacy that's registered and everything like that, I'd have no problem in the world about it. But if you look at what they've been putting up, they're putting up buildings, they're putting up places to grow the marijuana right next to the buildings and in the town. You know what's going to happen with that. It's going to get out to the kids, and we don't want to do that. We spent thousands of dollars here, hundreds of thousands of dollars, to help the children in their education. We don't want to do anything that's going to hurt them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just to try to clarify, the state has decided that the town cannot prohibit a marijuana dispensary. We do not have the right to put a bylaw in. We do have the right to put in controls. This is not a permissive piece of legislation. This is a restrictive piece of legislation, and that is what the planning board has come up with. This will limit the possibility that anybody would ever want to come in to Long Meadow and open a dispensary. Long Meadow is not a good place to sell anyway. We don't have enough people. Where they're opening them is probably the better places. It's a business decision. They're not going to come in here to open one anyway. But this is going to do the best we can to provide regulations that would make it less attractive to anybody to come in. So if you don't think it's a good idea, then you should be voting in favor of this. On the other hand, if you want to have marijuana anywhere you want, then you vote this down. Just want to clarify.
Further discussion on the motion as amended? Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of the motion as amended, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? The motion passes by declaration, 2/3. Now we move on to consideration of the motion under Article 31. Am I right?
Yep.
Mr. Randall.
Mr. Moderator, I am Bruce Randall of 107 Colton Place, reading as lead petitioner Article 31.
Okay.
I move that the town vote to petition the General Court for passage of special legislation which would authorize the placement of the following referendum question on the ballot for the election of town officers in 2014. Quote, shall the fluoridation of the public water supply for domestic use in the town of Long Meadow be discontinued, end quote.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 31. Mr. Randall.
The words I read were the legalese. Let me try a casual interpretation. The following words, a yes vote for this article does not end fluoridation. It simply places that question on the town elections ballot before all voters. Thus, it simply invokes the democratic process, which has been the proud bedrock of American life since its founding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Randall. Further discussion on the motion under Article 31. Yes, sir.
Bob Bayevsky, 134 Tanglewood Drive. My name is Dr. Bob Bayevsky, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Longmeadow Board of Health in opposition to Article 31. The Board of Health strongly supports the continued fluoridation of our public water supply. We have stood up in this venue previously and stated the same. We base this on years of scientific peer-reviewed studies which have consistently demonstrated that fluoridation is safe, effective, and practical in preventing tooth decay. The Surgeon General has acknowledged that community water fluoridation is an effective public health strategy, and the American Dental Association similarly endorses this practice. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has recognized fluoridation as one of the 10 greatest public health achievements of the 20th century. The question of fluoridation should not be placed on the upcoming town ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 31.
My name is Stephen Wallman. I live on Pinewood Drive. I am a dentist. I am an adjunct clinical assistant professor of general dentistry at Boston University's Goldman School of Dental Medicine. I am on the teaching faculty of the Lutheran Medical Center of Brooklyn, New York, teaching postgraduate general dentists at the Holyoke Health Center and the Chicopee Health Center, and pediatric dental residents at both of those health centers. We have gone through this every year for interminably, and every time there is a vote in one way or another regarding fluoridation, the town meeting votes it down by 2-1. Yogi Berra once said it's deja vu all over again, and he was absolutely right. We have had a town election several years ago, and it was voted down 2-1, just like the town meeting that previously it was brought up at. The time has come to put this to rest once again. Vote it down, send the message that we actually do want fluoride in the Longmeadow drinking water. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 31. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Richard Elfman, 109 Tennyson Drive. I am also a dentist. I am also against putting it on the ballot. Again, it has been on the ballot before and brought down. It's a naturally occurring element that we're simply looking to adjust to the optimum level. And I think that it needs to be clarified that in the article that a vote against the article is a vote for fluoride. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 31. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion as read under Article 31, would you please signify so by raising your green cards? All those opposed? The motion fails, majority negative vote. I'll now entertain a motion to dissolve the 2014 annual town meeting. All those in favor of dissolving, raise your town meeting, raise your green cards. All those in favor, all those opposed. This annual town meeting is dissolved.